Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Ichigo got Squad Zero's Zanpakuto Part 2. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Yeah. She said that the only way I could be forgiven for peeping is if I was the same gender as her. She developed a specialized keto some time ago to truly change a person into the other gender, exactly as if they had been born that way. It also forces a new Zanpakuto to form and them to lose their connection with their old one, apparently. I managed to disrupt the keto, but I can't escape the change, he says. Yamamoto-san, he continues. Yes. I ask him. I have already nearly lost my connection with Zabumaru. My Zanpakuto now won't survive my change unless you help me and take Zabumaru for yourself, he says. They've already agreed to let you take them. Just run your Reiatsu through the blade and replace my own remaining Reiatsu with yours, he says, drawing his katana and handing it over to me. I surge my Reiatsu, making the blade glow a brilliant blue for a moment. Ow, Zabumaru, I say, and the blade transforms into its Shikai. I will look after Zabumaru, Abarai-san, I say. Then Yumichika barges into the room. Aicho, it's good that I found you, he says. Third Seed Ikaku just contacted us. He landed in District 63 of the Rukongai and should be back sometime tomorrow with Shunpo. Now, why are you wearing the symbol of Division 5 rather than your own Division 11? He asks. Momo glares at him, ready to restart their argument from a few hours ago. He is the captain of Division 5, she snarls at the fifth seat. He defeated Captain Zaraki with 200 witnesses from Division 11 before he ever donned a Haori, so he is captain of Division 11, Yumichika growls. Ice Nanao enters, bearing a Haori with the symbol of Division 8 on the back. Yamamoto Taicho, I brought you your Haori, she says. Both of the two currently arguing turn on her. Kairaku Taicho wishes to exchange divisions with you, she continues. I smirk as an absolutely evil idea enters my head. Fine, he can be captain of 11 for the day if I can have the 8th. We'll switch after the Kachiki execution. Oh, and he has to keep all the positions the same for that day, I tell her. She grins just as evilly. Finally, he'll suffer for his laziness, she says. I start laughing and she joins in after a moment. Yumichika is grinning at the thought of teaching the laziest of all captains the ways of Division 11. I raise Zabumaru and salute, then reseal the blade, tie its sheath to my side and sheathe the blade, having no need for it right now. Abarai, go grab an Asauchi and work on your new Zanpakuto, I tell him. Sir, I only disrupted the keto temporarily. When I go to sleep or start meditating, that is the end of my time as a man, he says. I shiver in sympathy, dreading what happened to him. Then I decide to help him bite the bullet and get it over and done with. I smash him in the side of the head with a sheathed Zanjetsu and he drops like a stone. Green light envelops him and I pick him, or rather her now, up and carry her to the rooms of the third seat of Division 5. I don't have a third seat right now according to Momo, so there won't be any objections. Besides, the rooms are close enough to my own that I can deal with any problems. I toss her onto the bed and head out to speak with Yumichika about rallying Division 11 to my cause. After that, I'll go find Byakuya and see if she can rally Division 6, along with Yukitake and Kairaku rallying Division 8. 5 divisions should do the job of rescuing Rukia fairly well. A few hours later. Yukitake Taicho, Kairaku Taicho, Kachiki Taicho, I'm glad you got my message. I'll be blunt, are your divisions with me or against me? I ask them. I am committed to this already, Byakuya replies. Might you know where Renji is? His bankai, though unmastered, may be useful, she says. He landed in Unohana Taicho's rooms. While she was changing, I reply. Kairaku winces in sympathy. May he rest in peace. At least he got a good look at paradise, though, Kairaku Taicho says. Worse, actually. Unohana Taicho has perfected a keto that forcibly changes your gender so completely, it is as if you were born that way, I tell him. Abarai Renji is no longer of the male gender, I confirm. He takes his hat off and holds it over his heart, head bowed. A terrible fate for one who had so much potential, Kairaku says, and I nod. I'm with you. Just promise you'll kill me before you let Unohana capture me, okay? He asks. I nod. So long as you do the same for me, I reply, and he nods. I am behind you as well, Yukitake says. Yumichika confirmed that 11th would follow my lead earlier, so I have my 5 divisions. Abarai has woken, I say as I sense his, now her, Reiatsu leave the sleeping state it was in. I will go deal with her, I say. I rise from my seat, robes billowing as I walk into the halls of my division's building, using a shunpo the moment I'm out of sight to arrive more quickly at Abarai's room. I knock at the door and hear a command to enter. Yamamoto Taicho. You knocked me out, Abarai says. I nod. He is now very definitely a she, and I subconsciously note that she matches Matsumoto in the size of her chest. I did. You needed to just bite the bullet and get it over with, I say. Indeed. Thank you. I couldn't have brought myself to do it, she says. I wouldn't have slept for fear of the change. Is it done? She asks. Check for yourself, I respond. She does, looking at the mirror near her bed. The quarters for the seated officers are smaller replicas of my own room here, which I find rather interesting. Why did they imitate the Taicho in room design? Is it a required thing? Then Abarai screams. It is the scream of a man who has lost nearly everything precious to him and can never get it back. I bow my head solemnly, respecting her loss. I will return to my meeting, Abarai Fukatecho. Join us if you wish, we are not far from here. I'll have Momo get you new robes and the other necessary garments, so as to make things easier for you, I say, then leave the room and vanish into Shunpo. How is she? Byakuya asks when I return to the room. She is evidently very amused by Abarai's change, and I thank my decision to have Momo ensure there were video cameras recording everything that occurred in this room during the meeting. Well, except for her changes. Momo, go get Abarai-chan some new clothes, okay? I ask. My voice is level and measured, simply making a request. Of course, Taicho. What are your orders if Unohana Taicho comes here? She may need to check to ensure Abarai-chan is healthy, Momo says. Don't let her in until all of us have bankai ready. Unohana is to be considered extremely hostile and to be treated with extreme caution, I say. Yes, Taicho. And what of Aizen-chan, her lieutenant? Momo asks. She may be let in only when Kai no Ti no Megami and Raijin Jaka have both entered Shikai. She may know the Kido that was used on Abarai-chan, I say. Momo goes pale at the thought and nods vigorously. Yes, Taicho. I will make sure this meeting isn't disturbed, she replies and heads towards Abarai-chan's room. Now, I believe we had business to conduct. I ask my fellow captains. They nod and we begin planning. Taicho, Aizen is at the door, Momo calls. I instantly draw Raijin Jaka and Kai no Ti no Megami. Kairaku Taicho draws his blades, as do Juishiro and Byakuya. We use Shunpo to reach the open field just outside the division's doors, which was intended to be used as a decorative piece a few years back, adding a koi pond and a garden to it, but apparently that was never done. But it is perfect for this battle, as that Kido of Unohana's is a greater threat to males than anything else I can imagine. The open field will give us a place to fight anyone who knows it, without giving them cover to prepare the Kido. Transcendent Shinigami with the ability to control all 5 senses. Nowhere near the level of danger as anyone who knows that one Kido. Flower Wind Rage and Flower God Roar, Kairaku begins. All waves, rise now and become my shield, Juishiro commands. Scatter, Byakuya states, emotionless and ready for battle. Reduce all creation to smoldering ash, I say. Heavenly Wind Rage and Heavenly Demon Sneer, Kaiten Kayakatsu, Kairaku finishes, releasing his Shikai. Lightning, strike now and become my blade, Sajo no Kodaori. Juishiro shouts, as her blades also take on their Shikai form. She raises the blades into a defensive position, ready to fight. Why would she, though? She is female, she's not on the chopping block. No, it's myself and Kairaku who are in danger. Wait, she's an old friend of Kairaku, so of course she would help him. And Byakuya is helping because I would be much weaker and thus unable to save Rukia for her if that Kido was used on me. Zanbanzakura, Byakuya says as her blade becomes a multitude of cherry blossoms. Raijin Jaka, I say, and flames surround us as Raijin Jaka's blade is engulfed in flame. Massacre, Kai no Ti no Megami, I say, and her blade transforms as well. Then I flare my Ryatsu, having a dark suspicion. I sense someone attacking me from behind and disrupt a Kido with that flare. I dodge and turn to my attacker. What I see is a short woman in a captain's Haori and modified uniform, wearing the symbol of Squad 2. I also sense Unohana, who was apparently hiding under that Kido. I nod to the others. Bankai. Sanbansakura Kageashi, Byakuya says. Her blade drops and the corridor of blades rises, then scatters into blossoms. Bankai, Yumi no Arashi no Omo, Lord of the Ocean Storms, Juishiro says. Her blades change, one becoming engulfed in lightning and taking the shape of a spear, the other engulfed in swirling winds and water and becoming a Tessin. My Bankai controls wind, water and lightning and may still return your attacks. However, those attacks will now seek you out and they will be 10 times stronger than when they were sent at me, Juishiro says. I usually don't use this, but when my manhood is on the line, I will go to any lengths, Kairaku says. The captain of Squad 2's face is now a mask of pure horror at what she is facing and shock at 2 of the oldest captains using their Bankai. Bankai. Rippu o Mamoru Haritsu, Jigoku no Byuju o Senjin Suru Ten no Kami, Heavenly Lord who declares the law, hellish magistrate who keeps the law, he says. His blades are much the same, however, I see them shift for a moment into a giant warhammer and a serrated battleaxe, then back to their blade forms. This bankai, for 1 minute, allows me to rewrite the laws of reality however I should please. I may say up is down, and down is left, and it becomes true. For the next 9 minutes, I must then fight under those laws. Afterwards, I can declare a new set of laws, add to the existing ones, or leave them as they are for the next 10 minutes, and I naturally have just 1 minute to do so. It takes but a thought to declare the law, and any who should attempt to break it are struck down without fail by the short sword, which takes the form of an axe when I should will it to, in this bankai, he says. The 2nd Division's captain is shuddering in fear of that bankai. It may even be able to match the 2 I am about to use, pushing myself to the limits to do so. Bankai. Zanka no Tachi, I state. Then I slash Kai no Ti no Megami across myself, covering the blade in blood. Its shikai reaches full power only when the entire blade is covered in blood, and my blood is best for that purpose. It doesn't take much to activate a full-powered shikai if it's my blood used. At full power shikai, Kai no Ti no Megami grants me 3 useful abilities. One is the ability to enter a berserk rage, in which I will ignore wounds, and very few Kido can affect me. You have to fight me close in, and I will excel at that in that state. The 2nd is something I like to call Owlslayer. It allows me to kill anything, regardless of what reality says. An immortal god, transcendent, who regenerates any wound in seconds. Owlslayer gives me the ability to kill them, regardless of immortality. Finally, I can call on the sagas. There have been many mighty warriors in the past, and each of them exemplified an animal quality, you might say. So, I may activate the saga of the bear and become one who stands strong as the mountains, immovable, and with every blow having the unstoppable power of an avalanche, I tell them. In Bankai, these abilities are even stronger, plus its other 4 abilities still exist, I tell them. I hear a whimper. That monstrosity of a Bankai gets stronger? I hear Ichimari Jin ask. I nod as he walks out of the shadows, Shinso drawn. Oh, damn it. I knew I shouldn't have allowed myself to be assigned to assist Soifan in testing you, Yamamoto. Your great-grandfather wishes to see if you are strong enough to be a worthy heir to him. That Bankai is a good hint that you are, but he wants to see more strength, he says. I smile and nod. Then I say a word that makes him go pale. Bankai. Shai senjixiano jiku ga uariti kai wo watashita senshi megami, I say. Zanka no Tachi, a fire-scarred katana, waits in my right hand. My other Bankai awaits my foes in my left hand. It also gains 2 other abilities when its shikai is at full power, I say. I am the one who cannot be matched, I say, and my Riatsu flares emerald. With this, no one here can match me in strength, speed, or any other physical capability. I am the fastest, I am the strongest, I am the luckiest of all here. That might not mean much for some of that, but other things will be fairly significant differences. I'll be just that bit faster, that bit stronger, that little bit better at planning how the battle will go, I tell them, and Jin curls up into a ball and starts chanting a mantra. I'm not here, he can't see me. I'm not here, he can't see me, he says, and I laugh at this. Gather your courage, Ichimari Jin. I can see you very well, I say, and he reluctantly stands and readies himself to fight. Naught but steel can touch me, I say, and my Riatsu flares steel gray. With this ability, nothing but steel, a good solid blade, can harm me. No Kido, no attack by a Kido type Zanpakuto that isn't with the steel of the blade, none of that can affect me. You have to fight me man to man, head on, I say. Jin takes a wary step back. Shoot to kill, Shinso, he says, and his blade enters shikai. Bankai, Kamishini no Yari, he says, but his blade doesn't enter Bankai. I decide to help him out a bit with his confusion. Shinso fled to me, Ichimari Jin. Without my permission, you cannot use Bankai, I tell him. He goes pale. Also, I suppose I should mention the 2 other abilities of my Bankai that I meant to conceal, I say. I am he who brings vengeance to my foes, and 4 more arms made of black Riatsu sprout from my sides, making me equal in the number of arms to the Asura, fabled deities of vengeance in Hindu mythology, deities with 3 heads and 6 arms. I may now wield 6 blades at a time and incite a berserk rage in my allies, while my foes must see what they fear most, should they meet my eyes, I tell him. He curses, loudly enough to be heard at Division 1. I am the one who will bring revenge for the fallen, I say, and a shroud of darkness appears behind me as my Riatsu turns violet. The shadows become hollows, and I explain what just happened. Ichimari Jin. All beings that you have ever slain may be called forth by me to seek vengeance on their killer, I tell him. This is less powerful than the other army I might summon, but more personal. Also, they gain power in the form of being berserkers focused solely on killing you. They are twice as powerful as they were before as well. No other will be harmed, just you, and they will vanish with your death or when I end my usage of this ability, I say. He lifts Shinso. Ichigo is many things, but I doubt he is a coward in the face of death. The hollows charge, and I turn my attention to Soifan, both of my blades ready to fight. I consider invoking my power as the one who brings vengeance to my foes, so I have 6 blades to strike with, but dismiss the idea. Kairaku, Jushiro, and Byakuya are fighting Unohana, who is dodging their blows and looks confused. Why are you attacking me, Shunsui, Jushiro, Byakuya? She asks them. I'm just here to check there were no complications from the use of that Kido on Abarai-chan, she says. Shunsui responds with his own question, as I am dodging Soifan's attacks, as I have no idea whether Suzumabachi can penetrate Kai no Ti no Megami's shield with its special ability. Are you going to use your special Kido that you used on Abarai on myself and Ichigo? He asks, axe and hammer ready, but the fight is stopped for now. Of course not. Abarai-san deserved it, but you two don't. Ichigo seems like such a nice boy, so caring for others. He even helped out Abarai-san when his aid was undeserved, she says. I won't harm either of you if you let me tend to Abarai-chan. She has had her punishment and is now my patient, Unohana says. Very well. You'll find her in the rooms of my 3rd seat, I tell Unohana, still wary of her. She nods and enters the division, Aizen at her side. I nod to Momo, and she steps out of their way. After that is dealt with, the other 3 captains on my side join my fight against Soifan, and she curses. I came here to kill him as punishment for attacking fellow Shinigami, she hisses at the other 3. Stay out of my way, she growls as she tries to stab me through the heart with Suzumabachi. I dodge and decide that it is time to get serious. I raise Zanka no Tachi. Now, I fight back. I end the assault on Ichigo-jin, leaving his battered body to fall to the ground. I am the Lord of Endless Armies, and my legion of warriors rises from the earth, all of them clad in the garb of the Onmitsukido. Attack, I command, and they charge her. I hear her snarl a curse, and then she blurs into Shumpo, striking down warrior after warrior in a blur of speed. Then she declares her final intent to destroy me. Bankai, Jakuho Reikabun. She shouts, and a massive missile launcher takes its place on her left side. She raises the missile, and without ceremony, fires. I raise Zanka no Tachi to counter it. Zanka no Tachi, Kita. Tenchi Kajin. I shout, and the wave of flame meets the missile, causing it to explode and stopping both attacks. I slam my feet deep into the earth and hold fast against the wind and the explosion. The others are clustered behind me a moment later, trusting I will hold. I am he who is the mightiest of all beings, I growl, seal Raijin Jaka, and slam the blade into the ground, trusting in the strength of its steel and to my strength. A minute later, when the smoke clears and the wind passes, I find Soifan gone and Ichigo-jin clinging onto a post at the front of my division's building, which I note is heavily damaged. I snarl, swearing to avenge the damage to my division on Soifan. I reseal Kai no Ti no Megami and rip my feet from the ground, where they made deep craters when they embedded themselves in the earth. Kairaku, Momo, Byakuya, and Yuki take reseal their own blades and follow me, heading into Division 5. I hear a call from inside the division and note that Abarai-chan is rather fast to manage Jinzen and communication with her new Zanpakuto. That Kido changes a person so much, even at the level of the soul, since those in Sarate are spiritual beings except for a few Ryoka, that the connection with the Zanpakuto cannot be kept intact. People change over their lifetimes, but unless the connection is broken, a Zanpakuto is always the same. Ravage, hear you. Wyvern, a wave of fire arises from inside my division, and I growl. What is it with people damaging my division today? I see Abarai has a blade similar to Zabumaru's Shikai now, except the blade has a deep groove cut along where Zabumaru's edge is. Fire replaces the edge of Hiryu, burning within that groove, concentrated into a single path. She sweeps the blade towards Unohana, who seems amused by it. Fire billows out from the edge, sweeping towards her, and is blocked by Danku. Then Abarai-chan brings the blade sweeping in an overhead cut towards Unohana. The blade splits into sections connected by Abarai's red Riatsu and is engulfed in fire, sweeping down to cut Unohana in two. Unohana draws her blade and blocks it, the flame blasting out in an aura, destroying even more of my division. Abarai. I roar, furious. She turns and sees me with blade in hand and advancing with a smile on my face and an aura of purest hatred enveloping me. My division. What did this building ever do to you? I snarl through gritted teeth. She is pale and whimpering on the ground, Hiryu resealed. You're lucky my two bankai took a lot of Riatsu out of me, otherwise I would be giving you a proper scolding with Raijin Jaka, I say. Then, for the second time that day, I collapse, my exertions with bankai having taken almost 98% of my Riatsu and the majority of my strength. Aicho, he's waking up, I hear Aizen's voice call. I wait to see her hands glowing green and find my robes and Haori hanging on the stand near my bed again. My Zanpakuto have now had a harness rigged to keep them in the positions I had them in, so I won't have to go to any more trouble than shrugging the harness on when donning my Zanpakuto. The ones I keep at my side I'll still have to tie to my belt, though. Anohana and Momo both enter the room as I think over which Zanpakuto I need the most, and thus which ones I should have at my sides to draw quickly. I also see a full set of samurai armor, modeled somewhat after a mix of Senbon and Kakujo Tenjin Myao's armor. Thinken showed me his bankai once, so I know the look of his armor. The armor is painted black, which I nod in approval of. Amamura Taicho stopped by and left you the armor. He said it was a gift to celebrate your ascension to Taicho, Yamamoto Taicho, Momo says. I nod, resolving to thank Kamamura for this. He gave me a very useful gift, as if I reinforce the armor with my Riatsu, it will keep me from needing to use Kai no Ti no Megami's shield so much. Relying on any one defense isn't a good thing. It makes you predictable. Predictability is bad. I was speaking with Zangetsu while unconscious, and he demonstrated his bankai's abilities for me. He then allowed me to use his bankai, saying I would pass his test if I passed Raijin Jaka's, and that he wanted to see his bankai used sometime soon. The armor won't slow me down too much, and it will help a lot, now that I think about it. I can focus on attack more if I have to dodge less, which will be very useful against Soifon, a master of speed-based attacks. A black cat leaps up onto the bed, and I recognize it quickly. Iruchi, what are you doing here? I ask sharply, in a tone that demands explanation. I came to tell you about what that hot-headed young fool Ishida did. He went and tried to kill Kuretsuchi Taicho. Pity he failed and lost his powers in the process, Iruchi says. I curse loudly, knowing I should have found some way to finish Kuretsuchi off myself. He was thrown into the jails and is largely unharmed. Tausen Kanam rescued him from Kuretsuchi's tender mercies, she says. I nod, resolving to thank Tausen for that before I kill him in the most brutal fashion conceivable for his treatment of Suzumashi. Good. I'd hate to have my only cousin be a test subject, I say. She nods at that. It would be an insult to my family and to my pride, I continue. I would be obliged to kill Kuretsuchi for that. As it is, I might call his injury sufficient punishment and leave it at that. Good idea. Killing him, as good a thing as it would be, might cause a little trouble with you integrating into the Shinigami ranks, Iruchi says. I need no confirmation from you, Shihun, I say. So please, leave us devoid of your brilliant political commentary, I request sarcastically. She glares at me, then changes into her true form. But evidently she forgot her old technique for shifting her clothes as well. What the hell? I scream. This kind of blatant shamelessness, I just can't deal with. What's the matter, Ichigo-kun? She asks, mischief clear in her eyes. Get some clothes on, damn it, I growl out. Then I collapse back down onto the bed. My Riatsu is still very low, and it will take at least a day to be back at full strength. I have, judging from the clock in the corner of the room, roughly 42 hours before Rukia's execution. I'll take those last hours to flex my Riatsu, warm up with a couple sparring matches, and train with Tensa Zangetsu for a bit. I decide to meditate and train with my Zanpakuto in my inner world while I recover. I need to build up my bonds with them, have a few surprises for later when I'm fighting those who support the execution. Anohana's hands begin to glow green, and I panic. No, don't bring your hands anywhere near me, I say quickly. Why, Ichigo-kun? Anohana asks. That Kido. How can I tell you aren't going to use it? I ask suspiciously. I am deeply wary of that particular Kido right now. Very deeply wary. I hear a groan from the other side of the room and turn to look at the second bed that was set up in my quarters. I see Ichimari-jin over there, but something is very deeply wrong, I notice quickly. Ichimari-chan was too badly wounded. That particular Kido also heals all wounds and purifies Riatsu with the change, so it is a last resort or a punishment tool for me. Ichimari-chan either had to be changed or die, she said. I did manage to preserve his bond with Shinso, though. It was very strong, and she held onto it admirably well, Anohana tells me. I wince in sympathy for Jin and hear Shinso's mocking laughter in my inner world. She is laughing at Jin's suffering. You are nowhere near so badly wounded and only need your Riatsu replenished. I will do that and nothing more, on my oath as a healer, she says. I nod wearily and she brings her hands up and they glow green once more as she presses them against my chest. Besides, if I wanted to change you into a woman, I would have done so earlier when Aizen and I removed your robes to check for any wounds, she says. I invent a new shade of red with the color my face turns. You have nothing to be ashamed of, though, she continues, smiling. I let my head slump back with a groan when Momo chimes in from where she is restraining Iruchi. Momo at least helps her captain out and pulled Iruchi off of me. That's true, Taicho. I saw it as well when I put you in your bed earlier, she says. You have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, and in fact you should be proud of it, she continues. I freeze. The pictures are the centerpiece, she trails off, looking horrified at what she revealed. Tell me. I think I can take anything by now, given how much shock I've been through recently, I say, certain things can't get any worse. A moment later, I realize precisely how stupid that thought is. Things can get worse, I realize once Momo speaks. The pictures I took once I got your ripped and bloody robes off of you, along with the robes themselves, are the centerpiece of my shrine to you, Ichi-chan, she says happily. I groan in utter soul-crushing agony at this. I used to have a shrine to Aizen Taicho, but he was never as nice to me as you are, even though we haven't been together long, and you were right when you said he would have wanted me to be strong. So, as he would have wanted, I've moved on, and now my shrine is a proper shrine revering you, Ichi-chan, she continues. What's the point of resisting? What's the point of anything? I wonder, sunk deep into shock at this revelation. I'm sure it will be a lot better later on, when I can get more pictures of you from the videos, she says. I pale. Momo, what videos? I ask in a resigned tone. I wanted to see you fight because I knew you were really strong, so I attached a transmitter to you and got Nimu to send a drone equipped with a video camera to record all your battles for me, Momo says happily. The shrine will be much better once we've worked together longer, and once I pick out the right pictures to depict your glory, Ichi-chan, she says. I resign myself to this and wonder one thing. Does being an officer of the Gate 13 mean you lose some of your sanity? So far, I'm pretty convinced that Momo's obsession is not good for my privacy in future. Unohana is smiling, and I decide that putting up with women, any woman outside of my Zanpakuto, isn't worth it right now. At least I understand them to an extent, as they are part of my soul. I hear Momo say one last thing, and I freeze in horror at what I hear from her. I noticed Tobium among your Zanpakuto, and she agreed to help me out with building my shrine. She says she approves of you as a subject to create a shrine to, she says, far too cheerfully for my liking at the moment. The world is apparently a dark, gloomy place that is determined to bring me misery. I sink into Jinzen, despairing all the while. Hello, Ichigo, Zangetsu says. I nod, relieved to be safe from the tortures women can inflict for a little while. As you know, Urahara's foolishness with a shattered shaft sealed any bankai you are either given, attained through understanding and bonding with your Zanpakuto, or force from the Zanpakuto. I know no Megami couldn't have had her bankai used unless she gave it to you, or you understood her enough to achieve it through the bond between you. As it is, in that moment, both occurred. You understood her desire to win, to prove herself strong, as she always despaired before. She wanted to be strong enough for Zaraki to use her, to be his partner as she was during his time in the Rukongai, when she was simply the blade that cut down his foes, slowly developing into his Zanpakuto. You understood her despair, understood her desire to win, understood her will to fight until she is proved the strongest, and were not only given bankai, but won it through understanding of Kai no Ti no Megami. Raijin Jaka and Hineko both gave you theirs as well, you didn't need to force bankai from them, and that is a sign that you can become more powerful with them than the original wielders could. To force a bankai upon us, we may wish to serve our wielders, but at the deepest level we will always hold back our power. The forced bankai is, to us, a rape of our souls, dragging everything we are into forced servitude. But if bankai is willingly given, if it is attained by understanding, all we are will leap to serve our Shinigami, ready to fight. I have my pride and wanted my bankai used. I did not wish to be left in Shikai, with you not striving to go forward alongside me, he says. I nod, sudden understanding flooding me. You are a protector, just as I am, but you want to protect me rather than protect others, I say in realization. To protect me, you need to be wielded by me, and since the best way to convince me to wield you is to become one of the blades I go to most quickly, and since your bankai is so useful, allowing me to match nearly anyone in speed and agility, even with the armor. While not sacrificing strength for speed, I would use you more readily if I had your bankai. And the hollow within will only finish developing when I use your bankai for the first time, and you want me to always go forward. To stall on the path due to fear of my inner hollow is something you do not wish, I say. You want me to always become stronger, to better keep me from harm. And to keep me from harm is why I can't seal you completely. Unless you are in Shikai, you can't see the world outside, can't see the threats to protect me from, I complete. A surge of understanding is suddenly obvious, and I cannot believe I was so idiotic as to not understand this. I call Zangetsu's blade. He didn't give me bankai, I realize that now. He did, however, give me a way to understand him enough to see what his bankai could do, so I could achieve it through understanding of myself and him, the understanding of my blade at the deepest levels. Bankai. Tenses Zangetsu, I say, and the blade becomes a black Daido, while I am garbed in a black coat like Zangetsu's, and his sunglasses to go with it. I see Zangetsu has changed as well, become young. I nod my head to him in thanks. He nods back, understanding. We will train later. Now, he has to go contain the hollow, which is one step closer to development. When I use bankai outside of my inner world, he will form fully. But for now, he will simply grow stronger as he waits to be born. I vanish in a blur of speed, heading for other parts of my inner world. First, I arrive at Kai no Ti no Megami's realm, bypassing others, seeking to speak with her. I find a massive battlefield, with two armies locked in war as Kai no Ti no Megami circles high above them, driving a war chariot pulled by wolves. When she sees one warrior turn and run, the chariot soars down from the skies towards him, and she decapitates him as she passes by, then returns to the skies. The fields are covered in blood, the warriors wading knee-deep in corpses and gore, fighting and dying in an endless battle. The battlefield is ringed by massive trees, from where packs of wolves occasionally dart out, grabbing one of the fallen to feast on. Ravens circle overhead, blocking out almost all of the sky over the battlefield with their numbers. I move over that wall of black feathers to look at the sky and sun. The sky is stained red with blood, and the sun is stained a deep black by smoke rising from the funeral pyres on the battlefield. I nod. A suitable realm for my red goddess, who revels in battle. Zaraki would probably love to join in that war, enjoy an endless battle. Ichigo, why have you come to my realm? Kai no Ti no, Megami asks as she brings her chariot up to join me. I attained bankai through understanding of you at the same time you gave it to me, I say, and it is very clearly not a question. It is a fact, and she nods in confirmation. I wish to see your realm, where I have not been before. Many would call it an abomination, a senseless place of endless carnage. But now, I can understand it. I can understand what this place is, and why it exists. I call this beautiful, a place where battle never ends, where I can throw myself into combat whenever I wish. This place has my bloodlust, it has my wish to do battle just because I feel like it. It has a terrible beauty, a dark symphony in it, this place where war reigns eternal, my blood-stained goddess, I say, and she nods. You do understand. You know what this place is to you, and you do not reject it, but rather embrace your dark desires and control them, rather than letting them control you due to lack of comprehension, lack of acceptance. You are indeed my wielder, Kai no Ti no Megami says. I nod. We have come to our understanding of each other well. I just wanted to confirm my suspicions of what this realm was. I thought it would be much like this, but I wasn't sure, even though I understood Kai no Ti no Megami well enough to make an educated guess. I raise my blade in salute to her, which she returns, and vanish in a blur of speed once more. I need to begin working with Zanpakuto I haven't yet used in battle. I arrive in Sode no Shirayuki's realm, which is dominated to the north by a mountain range, and all the rest is filled with snow and evergreen forests. A realm of white beauty, which I decide truly deserves its place as the realm of the most beautiful Zanpakuto in the Sirte. Ichigo, Sode no Shirayuki says. I just landed near a frozen lake and intended to train here for a while before I sought her out. She is behind me, and I turn to face her, ready to train with her or talk with her, as she wishes. Why have you come? You have learned the first 6 dances, and you cannot learn the other 7 dances until you achieve bankai, she asks. The dance and to talk. Even the best dancer needs practice, and I feel like getting that practice in while I am stuck in a bed, I say. Not like there is a better time to practice than when I am staying in my inner world indefinitely, I tell her, and she nods. A moment later, we are in the mountains, standing in a wide open plateau covered with fresh snow and ringed by rose bushes made entirely from ice. I hold out my hand, and she takes it. Moments later, we are flowing through the movements of the first dance, Tsuki Shiro. Once we finish that, we move without fail into the second dance, Hakuren. Once we finish the 2 dances, Sode no Shirayuki transports us to a different part of her realm, this one a cave with a fire burning inside. I glare at the fire as if it killed my entire family. What the hell is that doing here? I ask. I was enjoying the white beauty of Shirayuki's realm, and this spoils it. My glare intensifies, and the fire wavers as the temperature in the cave drops. Baruki always liked to be warm, so a fire is there for my wielder to warm up after they enter my realm and spend time with me, Sode no Shirayuki says. I despise that thing. It spoils the beauty of this realm. How do I get rid of it? I ask. You can't. It's a permanent feature and will only go out with time if you truly despise it that much, she says. I continue glaring, then sit down away from the fire. If I wanted to warm up after visiting you, Sode no Shirayuki, I'd visit Raijin Jaka for a while. He has fire to spare, I tell her, and she nods in acknowledgement of this fact. Now, let's get to know each other a bit better. I know your name, I know some of your dances, but I don't know anything else about you. I want to know these things, I want to begin to understand you. So, let's begin with the simple questions. What is your favorite color? I ask, beginning a question and answer session that goes on for the next several hours. She eagerly responds to each question, clearly as eager for me to know her as I am. Once we finally finish the session, I have learned enough about her to start formulating what her true desires are, what she truly is. I begin to figure out what she can become and know I've taken the first steps on the road to unlocking her bankai. I rise from my seat, nod in respect to her, and vanish, heading for Zanpakuto's realm. She is waiting beneath her cherry trees, now in full flower, beautiful and elegant. There is tea, paper, brush, and ink awaiting me when I arrive, and I kneel opposite of her, picking up one of the brushes. I begin painting, creating a portrait of Zanpakuto's orchard, then a portrait of Zanpakuto herself on a second piece of paper, a few cherry blossoms in the portrait, as if falling from above, showing her element. I make another portrait of her wielding her blade, and finally one last portrait of her in full armor, standing before the corridor of blades that is part of her bankai. Ichigo. It is good to see you again. We have tended these orchards many a time, and you have learned something of the refined arts from me. I sense you are curious about your opinion of Yoruchi, and I can confirm your suspicion. It comes partially from my other wielder, who you have been associating with. The closer you are to our previous wielders, the better you can understand us, and the more likely you are to pick up a few things from them through sympathetic interaction of your souls, connected by the same Zanpakuto, she says. I nod, having thought that was the case. I engage her in conversation for some time as we tend to the trees in her new bonsai garden, just as I did with Sode no Shirayuki, then move on, content with what I have learned. I repeat this process in various forms with my other Zanpakuto, sparring with some, talking with others, and simply enjoying the deepening of our bonds. As a Shini, I understand well enough by the end of this to achieve his bankai, as we were already close. Zabumaru, I just begin to scratch the surface of their deeper nature, which is unsurprising given how little time I've had with them. Then I feel a presence at the edge of my mind and go to the being I feel has entered my inner world to ask why they are here and possibly converse with them. When I finish the conversation with the intruder, I leave my inner world and wake up, smiling slightly. I was in my inner world, I reply. I notice nearly 4 hours have passed after a glance at the clock. A massive time dilation between my inner world and the real world, as I spent nearly a week in my inner world as I perceived time. Zanpakuto was rather vocal on Byakuya's good points when I conversed with her, which I suppose she would be. Byakuya's soul is the soul that gave her birth, so Byakuya's good points are also some of her good points. Sajo no Kodaori was similarly vocal on Jushiro's good points, probably for the same reason. To achieve bankai without forcing it, my Zanpakuto either have to willingly surrender their power to me, or I need to come to understand them well enough, at the deepest level of their beings, that accessing their power is as easy as accessing my own. At their core, all Zanpakuto have instincts that they follow, and their power flows from that source, from some aspect of those instincts. If I cannot understand those instincts, I cannot access bankai. But if I achieve understanding, I can find that source of their power and tap into it with ease, allowing me to achieve bankai. Zangetsu's instincts are simple. To protect, to grow strong. I can understand those easily, I found that power without much trouble. He is straightforward, like myself. It wasn't hard to understand him, to comprehend the source of his power, and thus be able to reach it as simply as he does. Others are far more complex and leave me beating my head against a wall. Conversing with your Zanpakuto. Unohana breaks into my thoughts. I nod, then on prompting from Kyoka Sagetsu, ask a question she is very curious to know the answer to. How did you hide from my Riatsu senses until I let that pulse out? I ask. Kyoka Sagetsu is wondering whether I overlooked her, in which case I have training to do to notice details, especially one as dangerous as Unohana, or whether she has some trick that lets her hide. Kido. I've developed many over the years, some simply created to see if I could, some made for a certain purpose. That one is very vulnerable to foreign Riatsu, but allows me to hide myself from all the senses, she explains. I nod. Someone with her experience and Kido expertise probably would be able to make something like that. I can even understand some of how it's done, thanks to Kyoka Sagetsu's powers. Interesting. Much like the abilities of Kyoka Sagetsu to ensnare all the senses, I say. Unohana's eyes fly open. I hear gasps of shock. I look and see Byakuya, Jushiro, Kairaku, Aizen, Momo, Hitsugaya Taicho, Ichimaru-chan, Abarai-chan, and Matsumoto Ranjiku in the room. What did you say was Kyoka Sagetsu's power? Unohana asks. To ensnare all 5 senses. Her power is perfect hypnosis, I tell her. Aizen said her power was to create illusions using the water in the air, Unohana says. It isn't. I would think I know my own Zanpakuto's abilities. The only way to avoid being ensnared is to have hold of the blade, not see the shikai, or wield Kyoka Sagetsu. She has confirmed that her powers didn't change when she came to join me. She has also confirmed that Aizen is alive, I tell them. You could have told us this before, you know, Abarai says. Momo looks heartbroken. Aizen Taicho was lying about his Zanpakuto's abilities. He lied to me. She chokes out, tears starting to run down her face again. I sit up on the bed, start to raise my hand to call Kyoka Sujetsu to me to demonstrate, and suddenly have my arms full of a crying, heartbroken girl who just found out one of her two idols faked his death and has been lying to her for years. Yes, he was lying, I confirm, trying to calm her down. It doesn't work, all it does is incite a mood swing, and I thank the Spirit King that Captain's quarters are soundproof in case they need to discuss sensitive business there. That bastard, he lied to me, Momo growls. I'll eviscerate him. No, I'll stick Tobium through his spine and leave him a drooling paraplegic. No, I'll learn the keto from Unohana Taicho, use it on him, make a keto that leaves him smelling like a bitch in heat, and throw him into a kennel of hyenas, she snarls. I whimper in terror at that fate. No male deserves that. Then she's back to crying, her flash of temper over. I just hold on to her, resolved to wait until she stops crying. I start rubbing her back, trying to soothe her a bit. When she finally calms down after almost half an hour, she goes to sleep, emotionally exhausted. When she stops supporting any of her weight as she is asleep, she topples over, forcing me to lie down again, with her on top of me. I curse mentally, not wanting to wake her and deal with another mood swing. We've been discussing this problem with Aizen while you comforted Hinamori-chan, Ichigo-kun, Unohana says. I nod, knowing they might have a few useful ideas. We're going to see if we can find him and give him a chance to explain himself and why he's hidden his true power all this time, she continues. I see Kairaku's Fukatecho and Yumichika have joined us. No. That is a very bad idea. I know what Kyoka Sujetsu can do, and he has her bankai. He doesn't have to speak to you Shikai, then you'll hear whatever he wants you to hear. Go in hard and fast, take him out, or ignore him until he reveals himself. No other remotely safe thing to do given Kyoka Sujetsu's power, I tell her. Ichimaru nods, as does Byakuya. That's what I've been telling them, Ichimaru says. But maybe they'll actually listen to you. If we find him and you let me use bankai, I can take him down from a safe distance without ever seeing his Shikai, she continues. I nod in assent. That is a sensible plan, which would let us bring Aizen down. I feel he can be allowed to explain himself when he is stuck in a bed and unable to use Shikai, Byakuya says. Ichimaru's suggestion is the most sensible one for that purpose, she declares. Everyone has a say in this decision, and you and Ichimaru-chan are the only ones who support that idea, Byakuya-chan, Unohana says. I change my vote to taking Aizen down from a distance, Jushiro says. Kairaku raises an eyebrow at this. That is still only 3 to 8, Unohana says. I'll change my vote too. I see the sense behind Ichimaru-chan's suggestion now that Ichigo mentions that particular problem with not knowing whether we're hearing what Aizen really says or not, Kairaku responds. His lieutenant nods in agreement to this, making it 5 to 6. Momo made it quite clear she wants Aizen's blood, so I vote on her behalf as well as my own. Take him down first, ask questions later, I say. 7 to 6, and Yumichika nods in agreement. I'll go along with Momo as well, Hitsugaya Taicho says. 9 to 4, vote clearly in favor of taking Aizen down. Thank you for seeing sense, Hitsugaya Taicho, I say. He gasps in shock at the address. You prefer to be called something else? I ask, afraid I might have inadvertently offended the now second youngest captain of the Gate 13. You called me Hitsugaya Taicho, he says in a shocked tone. I nod, curious. No one calls me Hitsugaya Taicho. They see my youth and ignore my Heiori, he says. He is smiling now. Finally, I get some damn respect around here, and about time, he says happily. Yes, I would think it is about time, Hitsugaya-senpai. You are my senior as a captain, so I hope you don't mind me using senpai to address you, I say. Not at all. Plenty of respect in calling me senpai. At least you see the Heiori and recognize that I am a captain as well as a kid, rather than just a brat playing dress up, as some people accuse me of being, he growls. The room turning icy when he mentions the accusations. Very well, Hitsugaya-senpai. Can I count on your support and that of your division in keeping Rukia alive? I ask. He nods in answer. I can deal with the Sakyoku. You and the rest just need to buy me a little time to do so, I tell him. Raijin Jaka is eager to fight what is hailed as the mightiest of all weapons, I say, grinning. Hitsugaya grins as well, knowing that will be a clash for the ages. He raises his sword in salute to me, acknowledging that he will do as I ask. I apologize for attacking you when we first met, Yamamoto-san. Momo beat my head in with her Zanpakuto and left me with robes that were mostly ash, 2 black eyes, several cuts, and a minor concussion, he says. I suppress a smile at this. I should have known that you at least would be respectful, given your heritage, he says. What will Momo's position be in this battle? He asks. At my right hand is my lieutenant, where I can keep an eye on her. Yumichika, same goes for you. I might need a bit of backup from someone in the combat division. Also, my eventual division is as yet undecided. Momo will be accompanying me no matter the division, I think, but I could be captain of 8, 11, or 5. I'll make my decision after the execution is stopped, and keep in mind that I don't want to be the captain of a division that can't fight well. 5 and 11 could compete to see who does the best, maybe. I ask him. He nods. With the recent assignment of many of 11 and 8 to the other worlds, we're roughly equal in numbers to 5. Those that remain have Shikai for the most part, so we won't let you down, Taicho, Yumichika vows. Remember that I like Keto type Zanpakuto. Even my own original Zanpakuto is partially a Keto type, given its special techniques, I tell him. He nods, clearly getting the message that he is to use Rurouni Kujaku's true release. I then lay my head down and focus on replenishing my Ryatsu, preparing for the battle to come. Men of the 11th Division. I call, summoning the division together. Yesterday, Yamamoto Taicho worked on finalizing plans with us, and I know my part in this. Ikaku just returned from the Rukongai after being thrown all the way to District 63, attempting to block a blow struck by Yamamoto Taicho when he was strong enough to level mountains with the very lightest of his blows. Ikaku and Zaraki are both among the assembled division, the latter wrapped in bandages and still grinning from his fight with Yamamoto Taicho. As you all know, there is a new Kenpachi Yamamoto. I say. There is a roar of assent. You do not know his plans for this division tomorrow, however, and I was instructed to inform you. Tomorrow is Kichiki Rukia's execution, or so many of the Sirite think. However, Yamamoto Taicho owes her a life debt, so we, working alongside the 5th, 6th, 8th, 10th and 13th divisions, are going to rescue her and cover her escape to the world of the living. Yamamoto Taicho is currently being offered the captain's seat in the 5th, 8th and 11th divisions. Tomorrow, we uphold our reputation as the strongest squad in the Gate 13. Whichever of those 3 divisions defeats the most foes will be his new division. We are roughly equal in numbers, so there is no advantage for them there. I doubt anyone can beat the 11th division on fair grounds, so long as we remember who we are and what we are. I shout to them. We are gathered in the open, so I have no choice but to shout, as I couldn't reach them all otherwise. Besides, most of these brutes need to be addressed at high volume, or they'll never listen. Now, I have a question for you all. Who are we? What are we? I roar to them. We are the 11th division. Strongest of them all, the combat division. The squad roars as one. They are fired up and ready to go. With a gesture, I dismiss them, and a massive melee ensues as the squad gets itself ready for tomorrow. Momo's Pav. Squad 5, I say. There are nods of assent from everyone in the meeting room, which is large enough to hold the entire division, a full 3,000 Shinigami, should we all be called together. The room is shaped in a half circle, with a podium at the front of it, furthest from the door, stepped rows building up to create the places where the division sits. 112 Shinigami are in the room right now, which had tapestries with images of Aizen on them hanging from the walls until recently. I ripped those tapestries down and burned them with tobium not 2 hours ago, the moment I woke up. I remember that moment, my Taicho having been so considerate as to let me rest on his bed, rather than send me to the much less comfortable bed in my quarters. As a lieutenant from the Rukongai, I can't afford the same luxuries Aizen could, and I've rarely slept well on my bed, which feels as if it's filled with rocks sometimes. Flashback. I stir from my sleep, wondering when my bed got so comfortable that it felt as if I was floating on air, and instead find myself next to my Taicho, apparently redressed in my usual sleepwear by someone. I am resting partially on top of my Taicho's arm, and I turn slightly to see his face. It is relaxed, and I almost squeal in joy. No longer scowling, he looks perfect, as if he just descended from the heavens. I wander into fantasies for a moment, then snap myself out of them with a shake of my head, face burning red. My Taicho needs his sleep, so I slip out of the bed and put my robes on, fully intending to return and make sure no one disturbs my Taicho's slumber later, once the division is confirmed as ready. Flashback end. We have a new Taicho. You know this, of course. You know that we are to cover his rescue of Kichiki Rukia, then cover her escape with the other Ryoka here, his companions in this mission. What you don't know is what is on the line. He has also been offered the 8th division and won the 11th through combat. However, he can only be in charge of one division. We are equal in numbers to the other 2, so you have no excuse for failure from that corridor. Whichever of the 3 defeats the most gets him as their captain. There will be 7 divisions opposing us, all but one of them at full strength. The 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 7th, 9th, and 12th divisions. The 4th is unlikely to fight, but they are the ones not at full strength right now. The third might join us, given that their captain is speaking with Yamamoto Taicho right now. But that would still leave 5 full-strength divisions, most of them with Shikai, against 3 almost depleted divisions, 2 full-strength divisions, the 3rd and the 6th, and 2 half-strength divisions, the 10th and the 13th. We will be outnumbered, but do we fear this? I ask. Everyone shakes their heads, resolve on their faces. We will fight as a unit, rather than as individuals. We will emerge victorious. Is that clear? I ask. Yes ma'am. Very clear, Satoshi, the 12th seat and the most senior officer besides me and the Taicho present at the division right now, says. I nod, and the meeting is dismissed, everyone going to get a meal, set their affairs in order, in case they don't return from tomorrow's battle, and train. Nandao's Pav. Squad 8, listen up, I snap. We have a chance to get our Taicho switched for a far better looking, much less lazy and perverted one, I say. Kairaku Taicho is particular about who is in his division, or rather, about their gender. Every member of Division 8 but him is a woman and has to put up with his perverted ways. We would leap at the chance to replace him. Yamamoto Ichigo is up for the position. However, he will be able to pick between Division 5 and Division 11, as well as Division 8. Tomorrow, we rescue Kichiki Rukia and the Ryoka and cover their retreat to the world of the living. Try not to kill anyone and surrender if given the chance when outclassed or overpowered. We don't want to lose anyone if it can be avoided, I tell them. Whichever division defeats the most enemies gets a brand new captain, I tell them. Very well, briefing is over. Squad 8, prepare to execute the plans that are clearly drawn out in the briefing room, I tell them. All of us are in a loose gathering with me at the center in the division's dining hall, which has pink banners hanging on its sides with flowers embroidered on them. Everyone nods and returns to their meals, ready to get moving the moment they are told to. Momo's Pav. I enter the captain's room and put my robes back on the stand, planning to change into my normal clothing, but I first go over to Ichi Taicho to check that he is alright. I swiftly find out, as when I lift the sheets on the bed to tuck them around him, his arm shoots out, and I am dragged under the sheets. Ichi-chan's arm is wrapped around me in a heartbeat, and I am trapped in a grip like iron. My face flushes red, then I hear Tobium's voice in my head. Enjoy your time with Ichigo, as I just got allowed to take over his body for a moment and decided to use that moment to make sure you had a chance at him. After all, Kichiki and Yukitake are also after him, and you need a fair chance, Tobium says. I growl at her mentally, then give in. After all, Ichi-chan is warm. And me liking him has nothing to do with my acceptance of this. I do not need to resort to this kind of tactic to be close to Ichi-chan. Ichigo's Pav. I wake up for a moment, leaving my inner world where I was working on replenishing my Ryatsu, trying to recover a little bit faster so I could fight a bit better, have a little more time to warm up for the fight. I find Momo gripped close to my body and I yelp in surprise. I release her and push myself as far away as I can while still being on my bed, and she turns around, scowling. Ichi-chan, get back over here. You're warm and I wasn't done sleeping yet, she says. It has the tone of an imperial command and I move over. She guides my arm back onto her and I make sure it stays in safe non-sensitive areas. She snuggles into me and goes back to sleep. I sigh, resigned to this, and return to my inner world where I was practicing the arts of illusion with Kyoka Sujetsu. At least she is extremely comfortable to be close to. I doubt she'll be leaving my grip until I wake once more. Ready, everyone? I ask the other captains. They nod and we ready ourselves to move into action. Ichimaru, who despite being bitter over being turned into a female, nonetheless decided to work with us and avoid running into the bankai of Kai no Ti no Megami, leads the group towards the Sakyoku stand, her hand on Shinso, ready to wield the blade against our now mutual foes. I hang back for the sake of concealment, a Ryatsu suppressing cloak over my robes and new armor, even as Byakuya, Jushiro-chan, Kairaku, Ichimaru, and Hitsugaya-senpai stalk forwards to the stand, all of them clearly looking for trouble. Zaraki isn't here, sadly enough, but rather is occupied gathering and getting the Ryoka out of the way, having picked up Chad from the Agendo just a few minutes ago. Orihime was already returned to the world of the living by Tmsen, safe from harm. Ishida, Ganju, and Chad still have to make their escape, however. I quietly bid a last farewell to the 3 humans who were my friends, but now are separated from me by the gap between life and death. I already saw to it that their memories of time in the Sirte would be fuzzy or gone, for their own safety. Once the Ryoka are gone from the Sirte, Ganju, currently hiding somewhere in the Sirte, will be found and returned to the Rukongai by Zaraki, safe from any possible harm due to retaliation attempts in the fortress that is the Shiba home. Zaraki is assisted by Yumichika and Ikaku in seeing to the escape of the 3 humans, as resistance is very much anticipated by us as the group attempts to get out of the line of fire. Fortunately, Yachiru can and will lead the 11th Division into battle if they run into stronger opposition than expected and can't make it back in time to assist in dealing with the Shinigami of other divisions. I see the unsealing process begin and the kick begins to take form, though to call upon the mighty spirit is a slow, arduous process. I nod, seeing what they are doing, and it confirms what Unohana told me when I had asked about the Sakyoku. They are undoing another Kido to bring the Sakyoku into its true form. I nod to myself in satisfaction and confirmation and vanish into Shunpo, ready to wait for my cue, having fortunately brought a deck of cards with me I can keep myself amused. An hour later, I hear the clash of blades as the divisions on my side engage the Shinigami of the other divisions. Zaraki is leading the 11th into battle, his mission obviously completed, and I see him rampaging towards Kamamura and Tausen, clearly looking to fight them, the two most likely to fight him head-on, rather than try some other trick or simply destroy him with Kido. I see the Sakyoku, now kick charge at Rukia, and I vanish into Shunpo again, reappearing in front of the Phoenix. I raise Raijin Jaka's sealed form and strike, forcing it back. "What are you doing, Ichigo, you idiot?" Rukia screams at me, and I quietly maintain my position, waiting for the mighty spirit to attack once more, blade held at midguard, my hair which has grown longer over my time in the Sirite, and which has also begun to darken flowing behind me, though it is nowhere near as long as that of some people, only being to my shoulders. Not forming a spiky mane. "I'm rescuing you," I reply simply. "You can't. You don't have the strength. You don't have bankai or shikai," she shouts. "And even if you did have them, the Sankyoku would still incinerate you. It's just too strong. Run and save yourself, please, Ichigo." "No. I can deal with this foe," I reply quietly and confidently. Kikma's not so strong as he once was, and I am capable of dealing with him anyways. "Now, be quiet." The damsel in distress is not allowed to say that a rescuer is to flee. And even if I listened, I could never erase the stain on my honor. I am Yamamoto Ichigo, son of Yamamoto Isen, who was son of Shibaraiden and Yamamoto Tsume, and Yamamoto Tsume was the daughter of Yamamoto Genrixei Shijikuni. To back down would disgrace my clan, my blood, and my pride as a warrior. I have defeated Kenpachi Zaraki in combat and proved myself a warrior. I will not disgrace myself. I was in my past life Shibakayan and have regained my memories of that time. I will not allow your words to convince me of anything, Kichiki-san. Now, be silent or scream for my aid. Either will suffice. However, dare not request that I flee from danger, for I will not do so, and I will not tolerate you wasting your breath, I command even as I turn my attention to the mighty Phoenix, which is preparing for another charge, determined to finish the execution. Beneath me I can see Juishiro and Kairaku raise a shield with the symbol of the Shiman on it, and I shake my head in denial of that plan a moment later, recognizing the artifact. I have other plans for Kikm. I charge the Phoenix as he withdraws, meeting the spirit with my full might. I see my great-grandfather turn to Kairaku and use my Riatsu to enhance my senses for a moment, curious. "Shunsui," my great-grandfather says. I take it that is my great-grandson. Kairaku nods. "He is repaying a life debt," is all he says, but it is enough. My grandfather lowers his cane back to the ground, apparently having decided not to intervene. Now, I am far freer to act and defeat this foe. Immediately, I act. "Banch miss I Kajin tenace, Rikyan Jaka," I growl, every muscle tense to react to any attack by the Phoenix. The blade bursts into flame as my Haori drifts to the ground, the top of my Shihakusho now off, so I won't cook myself by accident. A pillar of fire explodes around me, even as I am surrounded by a star of fire, the pillar reaching far into the heavens and deep into the ground. Pikm screeches in mindless rage, and I strike at him with a blast of flame. I will win this fight, I silently vow. Flames are sent back at me as the Phoenix flaps his wings, and I drop to avoid them, rising again on currents of hot air and Reishi particles, prepared to move swiftly to avoid more ranged attacks, but rather the Phoenix charges me. I wait until the last second, then retaliate. "Damatsu," I say, and the Phoenix gets a blast of flame to the face, promptly tumbling across the skies. Given a momentary reprieve, I turn my attention to the ground, curious about how the fight is going. After all, in the worst case, if we can't secure Rukia her own escape route, this fight is meaningless. I swiftly notice that the fight seems to be stalemated, but shifting in our favor slowly. My great-grandfather is fighting Jikshurm and Kamraku, Shikai meeting Shikai with fury and skill. Soifan is fighting Yuruchi, the Hellcat relying only on Hakuta, while her former student uses her Shikai in a very dedicated attempt to kill, while Yuruchi aims only to incapacitate. Zaraki is laughing loudly and savagely as he fights Tausen and Kamamura, both of whom I allow to use bankai just to test Zaraki's capabilities. Ichimaru, Byakuya and Hitsugaya have moved to reinforce the warriors of the divisions fighting alongside me, turning the tide in our favor wherever they stride. Bankai unleashed and easily defeating foe after foe, as they show why captains are justly feared by the enemies of the Sirite and Rukongai. Unohana alone stays out of the fights, and the fourth follows her lead, entering the field of battle, only to remove those injured that they can, working to stabilize them. In the main fight, hundreds of Shikai are clashing as Shinigami do battle, Kido flying through the air as warriors trade attacks. I nod in satisfaction as the 11th fights with all their might, crashing into the ranks of the opposition with their immense combative strength and skill being put to use, Reiatsu blazing out from the fight in massive quantities. Satisfied that the fight is going well, I turn my attention back to Kikm, resuming the battle with the bird, which is charging me once more. 15 minutes after resuming the fight, I finally defeat the thing via a massive expenditure of power with Raijin Jaka, and he begins to fall from the sky, dying, his fires spent on his attempt to kill me. I swoop down towards the falling bird and grab the phoenix, digging deeply into my reserves. My will reaches into his mind, restored as he dies, clear of rage, and I force the powerful spirit to submit and serve a new master, making him become what he first was, as he cannot do so on his own, given the spells that bind him to that existence. A moment later, a sealed Zanpakuto lies in my hand as I check my fall from the skies, rising higher once more after a heartbeat, gathering my concentration and remaining power. Kikm was once a Zanpakuto, but a forbidden Kido was used to split him from his wielder and turn him into an execution tool. It was decided that a blade of that power level was needed for executions, and the unlucky Shinigami that had such a blade had it ripped from him, which destroyed his soul. Eventually, tired of his long torment, Kikm found a way to be free and came to me, relying on the path the others made into my mind what seems like months ago, and requested either to serve me or to be slain. He no longer wanted to be an executioner. I raise the newly sealed blade in my left hand and see looks of shock on the faces of all below. So that was his plan, Byakuya says quietly, nodding as something becomes clear to her. A chill goes down my spine at her sudden smile. I turn my attention to the Sakyoku stand and a shocked Rukia. Watashi no Tiki no Nikitai to Saisha no Shinkayaku, Kikm. I call, and my newest Zanpakuto's Shikai activates, binding it firmly to my soul. The sword becomes a naginata with a flickering blade of flame, which slowly morphs and shifts form into a spear, more swiftly morphing after that, taking the form a trident, then a glaive, next a guandao, and finally back to being a naginata. Massive feathered wings of flame adorn my back, and my armor is wrapped in yet more fire, which appears to create a pattern of feathers on my armor. My gauntlets now have claws similar to the talons of a hawk on them, and my feet are pretty much talons in their own right. To finish the look, a crest of blazing feathers adorns my helm, I notice as I gaze at my reflection in a nearby lake created by someone's Shikai. Breaking away from my reflection, I raise the naginata and sweep it down, a blade of flame extending from the weapon to reach the stand, cutting it apart on either side of Rukia, then slicing away the two legs of the execution stand. I quickly swoop in to grab Rukia before she falls with the rest of the stand and gets crushed under the stone. I lift her up with my free hand, Rikin Jaka sealed and sheathed after I gain Kikm, and throw her to the waiting Renji, to whom I gave the role of getting her to the Sinkamen on the Kichiki property through the passage our allies are to create. Her abilities with the newborn Zanpakuto harem are untested as of this time, and I chose to give her a less vital duty than fighting, though still important. Rukia will be safe, and then Abarai will return once Rukia is away from the Sirite and join in the battle, which should be dying down by then, so she'll be safe. I felt some responsibility for her current condition, and so will keep her safe if possible, at least for a while. Hitsugaya-senpai has released his bankai and is locking his foes in ice, keeping them out of the way but alive. I raise Kikm as I descend from the skies, ready to join the fight. However, a pulse of Reiatsu sweeps the field, and the fight stops as a heavy spiritual pressure falls across everyone, many falling to their knees. This battle is over, someone unfamiliar to me announces. However, I see expressions of surprise on everyone who hears the voice and dig into my reserves to be ready to fight. Then someone I only know from Shibakane's memories comes forward. Aizen, carrying Rukia and with one hand glowing. He stabs her through the chest with his glowing hand and rips something out as a tear opens in the sky, Jillian's protruding from it, and he smirks slightly, looking like he has finally had all his plans come to fruition. From that tear in the sky, 3 pillars of light stab down and grab Ichimaru, Aizen, and Tausen, lifting them up. I am unamused as I recognize the distinctive signs of negation and sheathe Kikm after sealing the blade in utter disgust at the use of that tactic. Jin, get out of that negasum or I will teach Saraki Bankai and send him after you, I say. She instantly breaks herself out of the negation, using her own bankai to do so, paired with powerful Kidm. It's been real, but not fun, Aizen Taicho. Later, she says cheerfully, then turns to me, face full of fury. Never joke like that, Yamamoto. She yells, still in the air, the fires of hell in her eyes. I say one thing that douses those fires and leaves her pale and shaking. I wasn't joking, is all I say. She falls from the sky in shock and fear, and I move forward, catching her easily and setting her down on her feet a moment later. With that, the battle is over, and it is time to resolve the other matters with my great-grandfather, which I will be very glad to do. I'm tired, and I think I need a solid day or two of rest before I feel up to fighting a captain-level opponent. Zanpakuto more warily resealed, both sides still suspicious even with the traitor Aizen revealed, and the 4th Division moves in to do their work, plying their craft on those they did not remove from the battlefield earlier. Assured that things will go well, I allow my gathered power to dissipate, my reserves low. I remain standing and yawn slightly, desiring nothing more right now than to sleep. "You idiot," is the first thing Rukia says to me. She lived through the extraction of whatever it was from her soul and is currently furious. "I told you not to come after me," she screams in my face. I am unamused by this. My ears are still sensitive from the Reiatsu I used to enhance my hearing earlier, so I could listen to the conversation between Kairaku and my great-grandfather. Speaking of which, apparently he heard Rukia's comments too, and a pair of powerful Reiatsu hit her, coming from both of us. "You do recognize that I'm a captain, right? As well as being of a noble family that outranks you in prestige?" I ask, serious. I am tired from my fight with Kikau and just wanted a little rest as well as a chat with my great-grandfather. We lift our Reiatsu from her in unison, letting her answer. The Reiatsu returns to its previous highly emotional, extremely easy to detect state as she is no longer oppressed by more powerful Shinigami. "Yes, and I don't care, idiot." She slams her fist into the top of my head. "What were you thinking, ignoring my wishes? Then throwing me like that? What if you had missed? What the hell happened to Renji?" She shouts. I am swiftly losing my patience. "I was thinking that I owed you a life debt. Now, calm down. If you are still to be executed, we'll cover your escape," I say, drawing Zanjetsu. Also, the rescuee gets no say in the rescuer's actions. Instead, they either remain silent or cry out for rescue, I tell her. "I don't miss my target, so throwing you was perfectly safe, and even if I had missed, there was a lake in your path, and I would have needed to try hard for you to miss that. As for Renji, ask Konohana Taicho, it's her Kido that did it, after all," I tell her. Then I turn to my great-grandfather. "Bankai. Tensa Zanjetsu," I declare, and black Reiatsu roars forth into the sky, enveloping me in darkness. This will make my hollow finish forming, but I decided to bite the bullet and let it form. "I am ready to fight, if you mean to execute Rukia," I say to him. He laughs at this. "I hear your resolve in your words, and I find it strong. Yes, you have proved yourself a worthy heir, not only in strength, but in conviction," he says. I nod in respect, understanding why he sent Soifon into Chimeru earlier. He wanted to see if I had the conviction to complete my task of rescuing Rukia. He must have suspected I would do something like this. I remember something from a few moments ago and turn back to Rukia. "Why didn't you voice your objections when I was rescuing you earlier?" I ask her, curious about this. "It's kind of hard to speak when you have the Reiatsu of hundreds of Shinigami and Shikai pressing down on you, idiot," she yells, slamming her fist into my head again. "Especially when you have almost no Reiatsu of your own." I am getting tired of her screaming. I vanish into high-speed travel using Tensa Zanjetsu, meaning to find a peaceful place to chat with my great-grandfather. I feel him enter Shunpo, along with the rest of the captains. We arrive well away from Sakyoku Hill, near the 5th Division's barracks. "You are not getting away now that I've finally confirmed you as a worthy heir, Ichigo," my great-grandfather says. I nod. "Getting some peace and quiet. I still have a few years of life in my human body, and I'll live those, but then I will devote myself fully to the matters of the Sirite," I tell him. He nods slowly, gaining a slight smile as he thinks about this. "That would work very well. There is time to prepare your formal introduction to the other noble families, and time to teach you what you need to know," he says. I approve of this plan. "You will still be a captain, however. For your information, it was the 11th that defeated the most of their fellow Shinigami in that little battle, among the 3 that were competing. I knew about your plans yesterday, but did nothing, as I wish to see justice done. To execute one who my great-grandson owes a life debt is unjust, and I would not stand for it. I instructed Kamamura to bring his division into battle on your side, should the balance start tipping out of your favor. He was occupied by Zaraki for a time, but once the balance tipped, he left Tausen to his fight and led his division into battle. I believe you may have noticed his bankai turn away from the fight with Zaraki about 5 minutes into your own battle with Kikau," he says. I nod. "My thanks for the armor and your aid in that battle, Kamamura Taicho," I tell him. He nods. His helmet is removed, I notice. He is holding his head high with pride, and I nod in approval. To aid the grandson of the man who allowed me to become a Shinigami. It was my honor, especially since you reminded me that I should hold my head high with the pride of a captain, rather than hide my true appearance. The armor I felt was an appropriate gift, given that you had to expend your power to protect yourself and rely on one of your Zanpakuto to do so, rather than use all of them equally, he says. Care to join me for a drink at the barracks of the 11th later? I ask him, and he nods. Speaking of the 3 divisions, you now have a dilemma over which to head. It has been decided by me that Tsuraki will retain his captaincy. However, tomorrow, Kairaku Taicho will be captaining the 11th in its traditional manner, Yamajiji, as I decide to refer to him, says. I grin fearily, and Kairaku looks like a cornered animal suddenly. Soifan is scowling at me, and I scowl right back. I raise Tensa Zangetsu, ready to fight. She suddenly has Suzumabachi and Shikai on her hand. My left hand, which is currently free, grabs Tenkin. Yamajiji continues his speech as if nothing is wrong. You will captain the 8th division for now, while Shunsui sees to the 5th. Aizen may very well have tampered with the division, and an experienced captain is needed to check over it. After all, part of the 5th division's duties is overseeing the academy, Yamajiji declares. I nod. My left hand draws Tenkin, slamming it out of the sheath, creating a massive pressure wave, as Soifan leaps out of the way. It is on, we have a fight to finish. Roar, Tenkin. 2 voices shout in unison. Kamamura moved to join me. Yamajiji raises an eyebrow, but says nothing at the fight breaking out. Bankai. Kakujo Tenjin Mayo. We roar, again at the same time. Tenkin, I came to understand enough for Bankai just a short time ago, when I heard Kamamura speaking to Zaraki during their battle. Hard not to hear him, given that his voice carries well and is always at higher volume than the voices of most people. At Tenkin's core, the thing it holds above all else is justice and determination. Pride and honor. To uphold his honor, to uphold his pride, Tenkin would go to any length. He and his wielder seek justice, not simply mindless battle, they seek a peace, an end to the eternal war. I find I can respect them for that. The 2 black armored giants manifest above us, and we raise our blades as the giants do. I created a technique based on Zangetsu's Yatsuga Tenshu, and bring it into play now. Hikyu Hakaiju no Kiba. Beast fang that destroys the earth, I roar, and the massive crescent of black energy sweeps down, extending the strike of the giant's blade. Where it strikes, it vaporizes what it hits, and the energy becomes no longer a blade, but 2 waves of darkness sweeping out from the impact point and destroying all they touch, which Soifan barely outruns. Kamamura looks interested and raises his blade again, gathering energy. Hikyu Hakaiju no Kiba. He roars as well, and another blast of energy sweeps forth from his giant's blade as it crashes down, this one a bloody red, but no less destructive. A very interesting technique, Yamamoto-san, he says, nodding. I developed it from Zangetsu's Yatsuga Tenshu, I respond. And to my friends, which I would count you among, I am Ichigo, I tell him. He looks at me in surprise, then smiles. My friends call me Sajin, Ichigo. Now, shall we teach Soifan Taicho a lesson in respect? He asks, and I nod. Once more, we raise our blades, but this time, we step forward, Kakujo Tenjin Mayo doing the same. I reveal the second technique that I developed for Kakujo Tenjin Mayo. Hikyo Kiruten no Supia. Heavenly spear that hunts the foe, I shout, and as I jab my blade forwards, a lance of black Riatsu bursts from the blade of Kakujo Tenjin Mayo. This is exhausting what Riatsu I have left from my battle with Kikau, so this has to be the last blow. The lance flies towards Soifan, who dodges. She doesn't expect what happens next, though. The spear turns around, flying at her again. I explain, seeing Kamamura's confusion. That technique locks onto my opponent's Riatsu and seeks them out. It is a sure hit, and in this case, will hopefully bring victory. I don't have enough Riatsu to continue fighting after my battle with Kikau, I say. Tensa Zangetsu returns to Shikai as I seek to conserve Riatsu and maintain Kakujo Tenjin Mayo. The next thing I know, Soifan has grabbed me and is using me as a shield. I can't stop the lance, and I don't have the power to survive it. Dying by my own technique, how embarrassing. Then a massive force slams into her, snatching me away. I see Kamamura has shunpoed over, grabbed me, and he vanishes back to his starting position. His blade is gripped in one hand, and I'm hanging over the other. Soifan barely dodged the spear, as she wasn't expecting to have to. Kamamura raises his blade, and the air crackles around him. He is furious. Soifan. How dare you try such tactics? He roars, his rage burning the air, the ground exploding around him as he loses control over himself. For that, you will know my wrath. He roars, and his blade sweeps towards her once more. Chikyu Hakaiju no Kiba. He howls, rage clear in him. The blast sweeps out, then he raises his blade and unleashes the technique again. And again. And again. His rage destroys everything as he advances with every blow, roaring in rage. For half an hour, he rages, until finally Soifan is struck both by the spear, which I maintained all this time, and one of Kamamura's energy blasts. She is slammed into the ground from where she was in the air and comes to rest in a crater 10 times as deep as Kakujo Tenjin Mayao is tall. She survived, I sense. I let Kakujo Tenjin Mayao fade at last, releasing my bankai, as does Kamamura. I look at what is behind us and in front of us, and I see everything for 5 miles ahead of us and 2 miles behind us is destroyed, wiped out by Kamamura's rage. I whistle, impressed at this. Then I feel an all too familiar feeling come over me as I fall unconscious. Yamamoto Taicho, welcome to your division, is the first thing I hear as I wake up. Nanao is next to my bed, book in hand, sitting on a rather comfortable looking chair. Momo is on the other side of the bed, glaring at Nanao, looking as if she was crying recently. Momo, I say. What made you cry? I ask, and my voice is soft, comforting. They said I was helping Aizen, Ichi-chan. They wanted to throw me into prison, she says. And you can't be my captain anymore, I'm lieutenant of 5th division and you're captain of 8, and I won't see you again. She trails off, looking as if she is about to break down again. Do you mind taking a reduction in rank? I ask, addressing the least vital thing first. I would be glad to have you as my 3rd seat, I say. She perks up. You'll really let me be your 3rd seat, Ichi-chan? She asks. I nod and am struggling for air, trapped in a hug. She releases me when I start choking and looks very worried. Are you okay, Ichi-chan? She asks. I take a moment to catch my breath. Then I nod. Yes, I'm fine. Now, tell me Momo. Who wanted to throw you in prison? I ask, and my voice has changed from a soft comforting tone to a soft deadly tone, a tone filled with the promise of death. I see Nanao go wide at the sudden change. Amida Fukatecho and the Onmitsukido he brought with him, Momo says. He's just outside the room, Ichi-chan, she continues. I nod. My Riatsu has recovered from the recent battle, and my robes, armor, haori and blades wait on a stand next to the bed. The room is similar to my former room at the 5th division, but the silk ribbons on the walls are pink instead of green, as are the silk sheets on the even more comfortable bed. There are several more pictures hanging on the walls, though the door is left undecorated. I roll out of bed and grab the roll of bandages next to my bed, left on a table near the head of it. I wrap the bandages around my stomach and upper body, stopping just below my shoulders. After that, I get the rest of my clothes on and don my armor. My robes go on over the armor and I finish by putting my haori on and shrugging my harness to carry my Zanpakuto on. I notice that Zabumaru and Kikau are now paired together and I tie them onto my left side as I don my remaining blades. Attired for battle, I leave the room, Nanao at my right and Momo at my left. There she is. Arrest the traitor. A fat idiot bearing the badge of the 2nd Division's Fukatecho yells. I glare at him from behind the mask of my armor and my hand goes to Shinso. Smash, Jujetsuburi. He yells and his Zanpakuto becomes a ball and chain. Releasing his blade inside my division and then smashing the wall away. I am furious when I notice the second action. I draw Shinso from its sheath. Ryoka. Surrender and we might not kill you. He yells to me. Onmitsukido members are entering my division and I ready my blade. Slice them to shreds, Shinso, I say. The blade is now taking on its true form as an Yurumi, coiled up. The one who I presume to be Amida laughs, right until Shinso flicks out, wraps around his Zanpakuto, and shreds it, leaving ribbons of metal to fall to the ground. Shinso retracts, then I begin what is very close to a dance, Shinso flickering out and retracting, becoming a blade of varying lengths, both whip and sword, as the Yurumi strikes down my foes. The Onmitsukido stand no chance against a captain and fall swiftly. I am not a Ryoka, Amida-san. I am Kenpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, who earned his title through battle, captain of the 8th division, great-grandson of Yamamoto Genryusai Shijikuni, I declare proudly. Then I see he is completely ignoring me, and I fume over this. Instead, something else has caught his interest. Renji, to be exact. He is ordering her to go out with him, calling himself handsome and rich. I might not be able to deny the second, but I would vehemently deny the first, as does Renji. He then tries to grope her, saying she should be honored by his interest. Ravage, hear you. Renji shouts, and her blade takes on Shikai form. Snap, Tobium, Momo calls, eyes burning with righteous feminine fury. Zabumaru incites me to fury on Renji's behalf. I smirk as an evil idea occurs to me. Amida Fukatecho, the 2nd division is supposed to be good at Hakuta. Let's test your skill, I say in an altogether too nice tone. Fear. Despair. Know your limits and do not attempt to surpass them, I say. I have sheathed Shinso and drawn Raijin Jaka. Reduce all creation to smoldering ash, Raijin Jaka, I say as I shunpo forwards, dragging Amida out into the practice grounds of my division, which were outside the wall he smashed. The noonday sun shines upon us as the flames of Raijin Jaka rage. Renji, Nanao, and Momo join me within the flames, swiftly being overcome by the heat of the flames and casting aside the tops of their shihakusho. I refuse to look at them. Kikau gave me an immunity to heat when I added it to my Zanpakuto, so I no longer have to worry about keeping my robes and armor on while fighting. I draw another blade, now that Amida is trapped. The second division is supposed to be good at Ho-Ho as well, so let's test that too, I say. I draw another blade with my free hand. Scatter, Senbonsakura, I say, and the cherry blossoms come into being as the blade dissolves. Senkei, Senbonsakura, I say. The cage of 1,000 blades forms from the petals. Scatter, I say once more, and each one of the 1,000 blades dissolves into 1,000 cherry blossoms. I bring the blossoms sweeping forwards towards Amida, as a wave of flame erupts from Raijin Jaka to incinerate him. He dodges with shunpo, and I hear an amused comment from the sidelines. I am so proud of my young grandson. Punishing the insubordinate fools just like his grandfather does, Yamajichi says. What, you think Isen's craziness didn't come from somewhere? I consider this for a moment, then smile fiercely, ready to show off and prove myself powerful. Control will come with time, but proving I have power this early will help a lot, as he won't want a weak heir. Bankai, I say, and Amida goes extremely pale. Zanka no Tachi, I declare, and Raijin Jaka's flames are absorbed into it. The air shimmers around me as I stalk forward, Senbonsakura's blade striking at him once more from a dozen directions, and Amida yelps. I raise Zanka no Tachi and bring it sweeping towards Amida, as if to cut his legs from his body. Zanka no Tachi. Kita. Denchi Kajin, I state, and the flames rage forth, seeking to burn Amida from existence. Zanka no Tachi. Tohoku. Nani Moachu no Yakido, longsword of the remnant flame. Northeast. The universe burns to nothing, and flames erupt into existence once more, scorching out of existence whatever they touch. Water in a nearby pond is caught by the edges of the flame. Water burns to ash, regardless of the impossibility. Nearby boulders are touched by the fires, and they too become ashes in a heartbeat. These are the flames that carry out the command that awakens Raijin Jaka. These are the flames that reduce all of creation to smoldering ash, I say, and Amida yelps. Never ignore me again. Never disrespect me or a woman again. And never make Momo cry again, or any woman who is close to me, who is one of my nakama, or you will be the target of these flames, and I will incinerate everything and anything in my path to get to you. Am I understood, Amida Fukatecho? I ask, and he nods furiously, so fast I think his head might fall off. I reseal Raijin Jaka and Senbonsakura, then turn and walk away, to cede my division, leaving Amida curled up in a whimpering mess behind me. He managed to soil himself, and my lip curls in distaste. Very good, Ichigo. You taught him the lesson he needed to learn, and that is the lesson as to who is superior between the two of you. I approve of your teaching, and your example was well chosen. Amida is very visible, an excellent person to use as an example to those who would disrespect you, Yamajij says. I turn and bow to him, my blades resheathed. Thank you, Yamajij, I say. He nods, a smile on his lips when he hears my title for him. I see my grandson won't be distant from me. Excellent, it will be good to have a true family again, he says. I nod, resolving to take up residence at the Yamamoto home whenever I'm in the Sirte, but still use my very comfortable bed at the 8th to catch a nap every now and then. I'll be changing the color from pink to black and green though. I like those colors. I will leave some pink though, as that is a favored color of mine thanks to Senbonsakura. I am interested in how you and Kamamura use Tenkin at the same time, he says. That is one thing I've been waiting to explain for a while. That particular point has amused me privately for a while. The Zanpakuto already bonded with their original wielders, which is why they can still use them, I say. Normally, when two people have the same blade, the link is not formed between them and their Zanpakuto until the Zanpakuto's wielder is chosen via fight to the death. Here, they have an established bond to two people, which is quite different, I say. He nods, understanding the point. Both have fully established links to one Zanpakuto, rather than the Zanpakuto not being able to link to one until the other is dead. I see. Very interesting, he says. Sajin comes up behind me, and I turn to face him as I sense his Riatsu. I too am interested by this explanation, Ichigo. I have been assigned to accompany you into the world of the living and will be staying with Urahara-san so as to avoid the trouble of Ikigai, he says. I asked for this assignment. I would not want to be too far from a friend as I have so few. You and Towson, to be exact, he says sadly. Very well. I'll be spending most of my days at Urahara's shop training then, I say. But I'm not leaving the Sirte till the summer is over, I tell him. He smiles, obviously glad of this. Good. But why will most of your days be spent at your aharas rather than your school? He asks. I close my eyes. I'm not human. I never was. I was born to be a Shinigami, and when these Zanpakuto bound themselves to me, my true nature burned away my humanity. I am a being of the spiritual world, and I'm just going to take the last few years my human body has in it and use them to make sure my nakama who are humans grow strong enough to protect themselves, I say, admitting it to myself at last. The only school I need to be concerned with now is the Shinigami Academy, and I doubt that I need to attend, given that I'm a captain. I'll watch my nakama from afar and find some way to get out of school. Duty before pleasure, and while I would enjoy indulging in the last few years playing human, I don't think I could do it. I am a soldier in the Amamura nods, respect in his eyes. Kairaku, who had come to stand by Yamajiji, looks sad for a moment, then snaps the longer of his two blades up into a salute, honoring me. I draw Zangetsu and raise him in a salute as well, one warrior to another. Good. You have come to the realization of what duty means, Yamajiji says. I nod. Then, I name you formally a member of the Gate 13, with all the duties and privileges that title carries with it. I name you a captain of an organization that has an eternal duty. To see to it that the afterlife is protected and kept in balance. Should there be too many souls here and too few in Hueco Mundo, you must deliberately create hollows, as balance is the first thing we protect. Without keeping the balance, the afterlife will fall into disarray. You will be endangered by this duty given with your title, may die in its course. Will you accept this burden? He asks. I will, I say, resolve in my voice, determined to fight, determined to do what I must to protect the afterlife. I know my duty, and I will carry it out. Kneel then, Yamajiji says. I do so, armor shifting. He raises his cane and signals for me to raise Zangetsu. I do so, and the cane burns away as Raijin Jaka meets Zangetsu. He is testing my resolve, and I refuse to be found wanting. He nods. Rise, Kenpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, captain of the 8th division, he says. I rise and meet his eyes. What are my orders, Satecho Jij? I ask him. None right now, but stand ready when you are called to do your duty. Relax, train, grow strong and able to serve to the best of your ability, he says. I nod, and he walks away, to see to his other duties. Sajin brings one massive hand down on my shoulder. Should we go see your friends and family? Kuakaku and Ganju arrived not an hour ago from the Rukongai, and the other humans are at the dining halls of your division right now, he says. I will meet with Kuakaku and Ganju. But not the humans. Not right now. They will try and convince to leave the path of a Shinigami. I will learn the Quincy arts, as that is part of my heritage from my mother, but I will be a Shinigami first and always. The Quincy arts can be modified, I've found. If I use my Reiatsu instead of foreign Reiatsu, it will purify instead of destroy, I say. He nods, understanding. Those who were my friends before cannot understand the path I follow now. Ishida might, as he was raised to a similar duty, but none of the others can. You are my closest friend now, Sajin, I tell him. I understand. The tall one of your friends, who may summon armor as his ability, he told me of his oath to always stand by you. Where he no longer can, I will uphold that oath, my friend, Sajin proclaims. I nod, thankful. We enter my division, heading towards where I can sense my brother and sister from my past life wait. Amik. Stark's folly. Stark's pav. Haicho-san, how about you show me a bankai? I ask, curious as to whether this maniac with an eye patch is as strong as the others. We're standing far above the fake town below, about to clash again. He shakes his head and charges me, swinging his blade. Below, I see Lilinet is having trouble with his pink-haired lieutenant. Bankai won't give me the chance to have enough fun with this, the maniac snarls, then starts laughing as he swings his blade at me. I shake my head in despair. Another Grimjo, damn it. Now I can't even see whether his bankai is strong enough to alleviate my loneliness. As the Espada who represents how people die alone, I seek someone strong. I've always wanted company, someone who won't die from my Reiatsu. Lilinet came about when I was made in a rancor, and I have someone to speak with now, but it doesn't help. Just one person can never fill that terrible void. I want to see whether his bankai gives him enough Reiatsu to survive me at full strength when my Reiatsu killed everyone around me for miles without me ever meaning to. I decide to force him into bankai. Lilinet. I call, and she looks up. Time for resurrection. I call, and she grudgingly abandons her fight, grumbling all the while. The shattered city below burns under the light of the sun, which is at its highest point. I put my hand on top of Lilinet's head. The maniac removes his eye patch, and a surge of Reiatsu erupts from him. Maybe his bankai will make him strong enough to survive. My plan if he is strong enough is to grab him and retreat into Hueco Mundo. Aizen can go to hell, I want someone to talk to. He'll calm down eventually, I'm sure, and until then I'll indulge his desire to fight. Kick about, Los Lobos, I say, and the light envelops me. Nice Riatsu, he says when the transformation finishes. My Riatsu flares slightly, and everything for a mile is flattened under the weight. He barely manages to avoid being slammed into the ground by my power, and I have a flare of hope at this. He isn't in Shikai, yet he can survive me releasing about 1% of my Riatsu. Promising. Now that I've shown you Resurrection, how about you show me Bankai? I ask him. He considers for a moment, then nods. Ichigo taught me how to do it, so I suppose I can show you, he says thoughtfully, then raises his Zanpakuto. Massacre, Kai no Ti no Megami, he says, and his blade gains a smooth edge again, as its name appears on the side of it. His Riatsu is much higher now, and I feel I have reason to hope. Come on now, say it with me, I tell him. Bankai, I say, just in case he forgot. Bankai, he repeats, and his blade glows as red Riatsu envelops him in a tornado of power. Excellent, now I just need to test his strength out once he names his Bankai. He still has only about a tenth of my Riatsu levels, but that is enough for him to survive being around me. Shai Senjixiano Jiku ga Uwariti Kai wo Wadashita Senshi Megami, he says. A few minutes later, I am almost regretting getting him to show off Bankai. Almost. Time to pull out my trump card. Resurrection. Segunda etapa, I say, and he starts laughing as my power flares. He'll have to be refined and learn some manners, but I'm sure he will be decent company given time. He had better be, at least. Or I will have to scold him until he learns manners. Even Grimjo can be taught, so he will learn, I decide. Pain. Is the first thing I hear when I walk into the room with Kukaku and Ganju a few minutes after leaving the practice fields. The next thing I know, I am wrapped in a one-armed hug. Kukaku is fairly clearly glad to see me. Ganju is off in the corner practicing his scowl, obviously annoyed by something. I was Kain in my last life, and I remember being Kain Kukaku ni, but that doesn't mean you have to hug me like you used to, I say when I escape the steel vise. I can't breathe when you're hugging me, and I'm fond of being able to breathe, I tell her, and she laughs. So, you are Kain, or were him, at least. You're still our cousin, even if you aren't fully Kain, Kukaku decides, then pulls me back into that steel vise. Ganju turns around, scowling at me. How could you save the Shinigami who killed you, Kain? He asks, angry. I understand his rage now. He doesn't know the full truth. She didn't kill me. She killed the hollow possessing me and let my heart stay in the Sirite rather than be consumed by a hollow. For that, I thank her, I say. There is a gasp and the clatter of something dropping. I see Rukia at the door, trembling in rage. She clearly thinks I am pretending to be someone she respected. I get out of Kukaku's steel vise of a hug and draw Nejibana. Suitan Sakamake, Nejibana, I say. I twirl the blade, and water sprays forth as it takes on its Shikai form. Now Rukia has her jaw drop, and she is looking at me in disbelief. There are some fights that are fights for pride, remember Kichiki. Sometimes you have to let someone fight alone, so they can keep their pride. Remember when we made that ice sculpture of Yuki take Taicho using Nejibana and Sode no Shirayuki in combination? I ask her, and she nods. Tears are in her eyes, before I once more suffer severe shortness of breath. So you finally release me, Ichigo, Nejibana says. She is a bit irritated at not being used more often, as she feels that since she is the most powerful water-type Zanpakuto, she should be used readily, as my first resort. Yes, I finally released you. We'll fight together soon, I'll get some hollow bait and go somewhere out of the way to drag hollows to me to fight, and you can kill hollows to your heart's content, I promise. She radiates happiness at that promise. I like using her, but for the battles in the Sirite, I needed raw power, not the elegance of Nejibana and Sode no Shirayuki. Zanpakuto could have helped a couple times, but I decided to leave her be for a while. I reach into my inner world and manifest Nejibana, as she has been wanting to go take a look at the Sirite again for a while to see how it has changed. Kukaku-san, Ganju-san, she says, greeting them. Nejibana, I presume? Kukaku asks. She nods in affirmation of this as I concentrate on prying Rukia off me. Good, you can tell us how Kain has changed, so we can figure out how to deal with our reincarnated brother, she says happily. Then we can go for a drink with Yoruchi and have some fun, Kukaku says, the old look that always indicated she was up to some mischief in her eyes, and I groan mentally. Not going to be fun at all dealing with the fallout from this. I manifest Kazushini and Zanpakuto as they wanted to talk outside my inner world, where I could hear them. Whatever they want privacy for, I have a bad feeling about. But I'll never turn down a reasonable request from one of my Zanpakuto, even if I know I'll regret it. I leave the room with those two, meaning to talk with Sajin for a while. Hello, Ichigo, Hitsugaya-senpai says. He has his lieutenant besides him, and I groan mentally again. She sweeps forwards, grabbing me and shoving my head in between her breasts in the greeting I remember her giving to those she means to irritate. "Hello, Hitsugaya-senpai," I say to him from where my head is. Matsumoto speaks up, disrupting the intelligent conversation I meant to start about how irritating she is. "I heard you can use Hineko, and that you have her bankai," she says happily. "Mind showing it to me?" she asks. My Riatsu has been pressed to the limits again and again over the last few days, without proper time to recover between fights, and I'd prefer a bit of rest, but so long as you promise not to drag me to a bar for the next week, I'll show you, I compromise, forcing my head out from between her breasts. I meet Hitsugaya's eyes and probably share his long-suffering look. I haven't gotten a moment of peace recently from the females around me, and since he has to put up with Matsumoto, I doubt he has either. I start heading towards the practice grounds again, Zanpakuto and Kazushini splitting off from the group halfway there when Sajin joins us, carrying a rack of freshly cooked beef ribs in one hand, taking a bite out of them every now and then. When we reach the practice grounds, I draw Hineko. "Come on, show us bankai," Matsumoto chirps far too cheerily. "Bankai is a serious, solemn thing, Matsumoto Fukatecho," I tell her. I then turn my attention to the Zanpakuto in my right hand, gathering my power. I lift the blade to guard and release it. "Growl, Hineko," I say. The blade dissolves into ash, then reforms. I turn it over, pointing the tip towards the ground. "Bankai. Kazuneko," I declare, stabbing the blade into the ground. Dark ash clouds billow from the hilt as the blade dissolves, turning the sky dark with ash, blotting out the sun. 16 cracks spread out from the impact point, reaching a distance of roughly 4 meters from me, then the ground explodes, pillars of lava reaching a kilometer into the sky, burning brightly. I command the lava to form into a dragon, and it converges above me, creating a massive pool of lava that looks almost like an egg. The egg explodes in its turn, droplets of molten rock raining down, then sweeping towards me at a thought to avoid excessive damage. Above, a dragon with skin of obsidian, broken by veins of lava, takes shape. Its wings cast a dark shadow on everyone as it descends to the ground, roaring, ash clouds spewing from massive vents on its back, its burning fangs bared. When it lands, I leap on top of it, proving my immunity. Lava rises from the ground, forming a blade-like Hineko's sealed form in my gauntleted right hand. My robes are flapping in the burning winds rising from the dragon. I raise the blade and exert my Riatsu. A distant mountain erupts into a volcano, lava spewing forth with massive ash clouds staining the sky as I command the fires of the earth to obey me. Pools of lava are forming on the training ground from where Hineko was stabbed into the ground. Matsumoto is standing back, looking amazed and terrified at this show of power. I leap off the dragon and let it fade, returning to the molten rock from which I birthed it. It sinks into the lava pools, and I end my bankai. "I see. So that is Hineko's bankai," Matsumoto says. I nod solemnly. She has lost her expression of carelessness and is gazing in wonder at the newborn volcano. "Now you see why I was reluctant to use it?" I ask her. She nods, and I step over to Sajin. "I have been working on at best 25% power since my first fight with Soifon, and I want to get some proper rest." I return Hineko to its sheath, the blade now reformed as the ash clouds overhead coalesced into the blade, and stalk into the 8th Division's barracks, tired, but knowing I need to get my paperwork done. "Hitsugaya-senpai, I leave it to you to properly discipline her for her insubordinate request," I say. "Very well, Ichigo," Hitsugaya-senpai says. "Matsumoto, we're going back to the 10th. You need to learn why it is disrespectful to ask a captain to release their bankai so casually," he snarls, embarrassed at her actions. "Yes, sir," Matsumoto says, for one subdued. She walks away, deep in thought, at the sight of her captain. "Sajin. If you could help me with the paperwork. I'm unused to what needs to be done, and I'm tired from all the Riatsu I've been using recently," I say. "Of course. If I might ask a question?" he asks in return. "You just did, but you may ask another," I say wearily. "Why did you keep Hinamori around, making her your third seat?" he asks, and that is one question I am happy to answer. Aizen did massive psychological damage to her. She needs some steadying presence in her life by now, and if not me, then who? She needs someone to follow, and as the only one she hadn't had a chance to form an opinion of before Aizen's death, I'm the best for that. She will be very strong given time to repair the damage and a chance to grow on her own. I like her, but she needs to grow a bit more, and I'll be glad to help her with that. I would hate seeing her potential wasted because of Aizen's betrayal, I tell him. I see. That is true, she has potential that should not be wasted. And she is honestly kind, if a bit fanatical. To see such a person break under the weight of this betrayal would be a shame, Sajin agrees. I nod, and we walk in silence the rest of the way to my office. Kazushini Pav. "Zanbanzakura, something must be done," I say. She nods, knowing what I am talking about. We occupied a room well away from prying ears in Ichigo's new division. We need to prepare our plan of attack. Your wielder is not being obvious enough in her offering submission to Ichigo-sama. This must be corrected, I say. She nods again. But what can we do? Short of directly bringing the idea of marrying her to Ichigo-sama, I doubt anything can get through his great wall of denial, Zanpakuto says, dissatisfied with this. I snarl in frustration, as I can't help but agree with this. Then I have an idea. An absolutely evil idea, and shadows consume the previously well-lit room as I laugh maliciously. What did you come up with? Zanpakuto asks curiously. I grin, certain that this will make Ichigo-sama notice that he has woman interested in him. That is simple. He won't see it unless we shove this in his face, but once he is awakened to actually noticing women being interested in him, he will figure out precisely what the others interested in him are thinking. I talked with Minazuki about that Kido Anohana uses to change gender, and she says it makes mental changes as well. If they were straight before the gender change, they will still be straight for their new gender. So, the only one I can think of straightforward enough to shatter the Great Wall of Denial is Abimaru's former wielder. So what do you think of making a little visit to Hiryu, recruiting her in this little task, I ask, and Zanpakuto joins in my laughter. Or is it a future part of the story? Ichigo versus the Espada. Ichigo's POV. It's just me and Sajin against the first 4 Espada. Aizen brought his strongest with him, hoping that they would delay me long enough for him to make the king's key and hide in the royal dimension, where I couldn't follow. He has some sense after all, to be scared of what I can do when I am as furious as I am with him. Sajin, you mind dealing with the Frachian, keeping my back clear of the weaker foes that can still be a bit dangerous? I ask him. Of course not. You concentrate on the Espada, Sajin says, as he heads towards where the Frachian wait. We have fought together for some time now, 2 captains who will stand together in this war. Sajin is a loyal friend and an excellent person to have guarding your back in a fight. However, this battle I must fight alone. I raise Raijin Jaka in my right hand and Tensa Zangetsu in my left hand. My hollow mask is on, and I prepare to enter Resurrection the moment it becomes necessary. Fear. Despair. Know your limits and do not attempt to surpass them. I thunder, which has become a custom to say before I release Raijin Jaka. I see Ulquiorra wince. He knows what's coming. Reduce all creation to smoldering ash, Raijin Jaka. I command, and the flames roar forth, consuming the city below in an immense conflagration. The Primera suddenly looks interested. Taicho-san, mind showing me your bankai? He asks. If you show me your resurrection, I say. He begins to nod when a very familiar green light lances out towards his position. I instantly flicker half a kilometer away due to reflexive fear of that Kido. Anohana said she would make an example of one of the Arankar, so the others would know precisely how creative she is with Kido. She has Kido developed for almost every single situation, and that particular one is creative in the extreme, showing precisely how dangerous she is to any male. The green light envelops the Primera, and I close my eyes for a moment, silently showing my respect to the former male. When the light fades, a woman stands there. I see you've suffered Anohana's expertise with Kido, Primera-san, I tell her. She looks down at herself. Looks up at me. Asks an obvious question. What the hell? She screams, her voice shrill. She is obviously very surprised at the sudden change. I think Anohana has taken an altogether too sadistic pleasure in using that Kido. But I am not about to try and stop her. Being a male is too important to me. That would be Anohana's favorite Kido. She developed it herself. Now, about that resurrection. I ask, hopeful that this is still a fight. Fine. Kick about, Los Lobos, she says, placing her hand on her Frachian's head. The Segunda through Cuatra are staying out of the way, watching the fight. I see her change, then decide to comply with her request. Bankai, Zanka no Tachi. I call. Then I add an unexpected twist into things. Rend the skies asunder, Tensa Zangetsu. I call. Darkness envelops me as I enter Resurrection myself. When I leave Resurrection, my armor is gone, and my skin is pale. Tufts of red fur are at my wrists and ankles, and a red collar of fur at my neck. My skin is pale white, a hollow hole adorning my chest, and tribal markings stretching out from it. My coat has the top tipped to shreds, and the bottom is ragged. My face is covered by a demonic mask, and horns stretch out from the mask. Past O Lord Ichigo, I bring Tensa Zangetsu sweeping down in my left hand, and everything behind me for 3 kilometers is annihilated by the air pressure created. The Primera flares her Riatsu, and everything for 2 kilometers around is flattened, but I shrug it off. The power boost from Zanka no Tachi is immense. Zanka no Tachi. Tohoku. Nani Moachu no Yakido, I call out, and the flames burn away all the debris, incinerating them in a heartbeat and leaving us trapped in a cage of deadly flame. Well, the Primera is trapped. I can't be hurt by my own fires. The Tercer uses Sanito to enter the cage as well, entering from above. The two look at each other, share a grin that makes me very nervous, then turn back to me, a terrifying look in their eyes. A look that means they intend not to fight. Can't we keep this fight going? Please. I ask, tired of fights ending like this. What the hell is with this? Is some kami screwing with my life? I raise my head and roar my frustration to the midnight skies, howling my desire for a good fight to the uncaring full moon, which is casting its light down upon this battlefield serenal. It is several hours after I demonstrated bankai for Matsumoto Fukutecho, and the sun is setting as I finally complete my paperwork. More than once I was tempted to release Raijin Jaka and claim a vasto lord entered my office through Garganta to justify the release. Sajin's patience with my inexperience with a massive load of paperwork that a captain has, as opposed to the lieutenant I was in my previous life, stopped me, however. Otherwise it would have burned, and I would be laughing maniacally right now. I leave my office to go grab a meal and find Nanao waiting outside. "Yamamoto Taicho," she says. "Your seated officers are waiting to get their own paperwork so they can get their workload done as well," she chastises. "It will take hours to finish, so we had best get started immediately," she continues. I go pale and turn to Sajin. "Sajin, the seated officer's paperwork is delivered to the captain as well?" I ask. He nods. "The captains then apportion it as they see fit," he replies. "I finished all the paperwork in that office. I'm guessing some of it belonged to my seated officers?" I ask. He nods and laughs as my head sinks into my hands and I let out a groan of despair. "Nanao, tell everyone they can go home. I did their work for them as a one-time gift to my division," I say. She looks shocked. "You did what?" she asks. "I did the paperwork," I respond, head still buried in my hands. "All of it. Including yours. Every bit of paperwork for the entire division," I tell her. "Sir, I'm a bit confused. You're saying you did the paperwork?" Someone I don't know asks. The rest of my seated officers came over to see what was taking Nanao so long. The entire 5th and 8th divisions were recalled 3 hours ago and arrived an hour later. I nod, wondering why she is confused. "You actually worked instead of lazing around drinking sake and being perverted?" She asks cautiously, a bit of hope in her eyes. That same look is on the faces of everyone else. "So we can go home or go and enjoy a favorite pastime now, instead of being kept late at the office and having to wake up early to get everything done, every single day of every single week all year round?" She asks, and now I know there is hope in her eyes, as she is practically begging me with her expression to say it's true. "You'll actually do your share of the paperwork?" she asks, and every single female there is making puppy dog eyes, including Momo. "Yes, I'll do my share every day. Why?" I ask. I don't get an answer, unless suddenly being short of breath due to Nanao having a death grip on me is an answer. Tears of joy are running down her face, and I am getting a little wary of this sudden change of demeanor. "I'll explain why we are so happy, Taicho," my 8th seat says. "I don't know the names of most of my seated officers yet, only my lieutenant and 3rd seat. Our previous captain was lazy, perverted, and deliberately gave us so much paperwork that it was a 12-hour job doing it all, plus the 6 hours of training he mandated for our division. We were always slaving away and no time for ourselves, but now we're saved. A captain who does his work for once," she says happily. "I see. Just know that anyone who slacks off from the 4 hours of training I mandate gets to face me in a sparring match," I respond, and they all nod. "Fair enough, Taicho," Nanao says. "Be warned, I'll use bankai," I say. Then I decide not to bother, as I am getting frightened by the gleams in their eyes, and vanish into Shumpo, heading for the dining hall. I'm hungry and I need to get something to eat so I can replenish my Ryatsu, given its current dangerously low state. The next day. I see the sun just starting to rise above the hills from the windows of my office, and have already apportioned the paperwork to my seated officers and set it outside the door, with notes indicating who gets what. I met Hitsugaya-senpai when I was out for a walk, and he said that he assigned his lieutenant to be the new lieutenant of the 5th, where her new Taicho gets to lumber her with the paperwork while he slacks off. There is a dangerous smile on his face as he says this, and I break out into a similar grin. This is a very suitable punishment for her. Very suitable indeed. We agree to share a drink later, as Kairaku left rather substantial stores of high-quality sake, and I've developed a taste for a bit of sake every now and then, since my old memories of being Shibakane were restored. I feel like raiding those stores tonight, and he'll have to replenish them at the 5th division, as he is not getting his old sake reserves back from me. I heard that when he visited the 4th yesterday to be checked for any injuries from fighting the Satechu, he entered bankai before he took so much as a single step inside. Sajin passed the news on to me, and that was good for a laugh. It takes me an hour or so to get my much smaller paperwork load done, and none of my officers have arrived by then. I consider, then spend another hour getting the paperwork of my lieutenant and third seat done, and then the layabouts arrive, 2 hours after dawn. Ichigo, we're ready for our paperwork, Nanao says. I leave my office, clad in full armor and blades at the ready. She flinches slightly looking at me, but stands strong and raises her book in one hand, advancing, probably meaning to smack me in the head. I did it for you. As well as my own and Momo's. I was up before dawn to get it done, so take the day off except for training, I tell her. She suddenly stops her advance towards me, face a study in shock as I stride by. I grabbed hollow bait earlier today and found a nice place to fight, along with a nullifier for the bait. I informed the Seitetsu, and he approved of the plan. Nejibana is strong, the crashing waves and the deadly tides, but she is not a blade with the raw power of Raijin Jaka or Kai no Ti no Megami. She is not a straightforward Zanpakuto, but rather takes some time to figure out how to use, as you have to be precise. A trident like her is not like the swords I've used the most. You can't hack and slash, you have to strike a specific point. It gets more difficult when you remember that she is a Keto type, and thus you have to factor those abilities in, using the water and the blade as your weapons. With Raijin Jaka, there is more familiarity with the weapon type, and the techniques require a bit less thought, as you do not have to control the flames from the start of the attack to the end of it. Ichigo, where are you going? Nanao asks, shaking herself out of her shock and falling in on my right side, as Momo joins me in my walk, standing at my left hand. The train with Nejibana. I got hollow bait strong enough to draw judges from the 12th division, and I mean to use it. I have more than enough of my strength right now to kill any hollow except a Vasto Lord, I tell her. We'll accompany you, sir, Nanao says, and I shake my head no. This is a personal thing, to deepen the bond between Shinigami and Zanpakuto. I will fight alone today, Ice Fukatecho, I say. She glares at me, but I refuse to cave under the weight of disapproval. Sir, with all respect due to your rank, but you cannot fight alone in this. You need someone to watch your back, make sure you don't get a zero from behind, she says. Ice Fukatecho. In the years you have served as lieutenant of this division, how many times have you raised your blade against a Minos class hollow? I ask, already knowing the probable answer. None, sir. But I am strong enough to deal with an Ajuchas, she says, raising her book. Until you prove to me under controlled conditions that you can deal with an Ajuchas, I will not be allowing you into the kind of vicious melee this battle will be. Now go and read a book. Any book, so long as it keeps you well away from this battle. That's an order, both of you, I tell Momo and Nanao. Or do something else. Anything that keeps you safe from their claws. As a captain, I am more than capable of dealing with Ajuchas, and I like the odds if I face a Vasto Lord. But neither of you have bankai to help keep you safe if things turn nasty, and the bait calls a Vasto Lord as well as the Ajuchas, so you are staying out of the way. If you absolutely must, you may record the battle from a safe distance. Strong barriers have been set up to hold the hollows within the bounds of the battleground I've chosen, I tell them. No one below captain class could enter those barriers, though, so don't go trying to get in on the fight, I warn them. They nod, and Momo heads towards her rooms at a sprint, probably going to grab a camera. When she catches up with myself and Nanao, Sajin is at her side, along with Hitsugaya-senpai. We'll step in only if things get really bad, Hitsugaya-senpai says. I nod, acknowledging that I won't stop them from helping. The 5 of us vanish into Shunpo, heading for the area I chose. We arrive in a large crater, filled with long grass. It used to be a large hill, Sajin told me, until he accidentally smashed it in with his bankai, creating the field where I will now fight. The majority of the hill still exists, shielding most of what goes on in the depression from prying eyes. Only the crest of the hill was smashed in, leaving walls of earth to contain the flood Nejibana will release. I nod to them and they shunpo to the top of the walls, leaving me alone in the depression as the barriers activate. I take the hollow bait out and break it, drawing Nejibana as I do so. Suiton Sakamake, Nejibana, I say as the first Garganta appears and a bull like Ajuchas charges out. The trident spears forth, shattering its mask. But where one died, a dozen take its place, and I begin to laugh as the joy of the fight comes over me. An hour later, I'm still going strong, when a smaller Garganta opens and a female Vasto Lord steps out, or at least I think it's a Vasto Lord. Has the strength of one, and certainly appears humanoid. Then I notice the mask fragment and Zanpakuto. And a rancor. I grin, knowing this will be a very good fight indeed. Both of us are standing on air, as the ground where I stood when this started is now 8 meters, 26 feet below water. I raise Nejibana and salute my opponent. 3 other rancor follow her, probably Ajuchas before they were rancor. This is looking more and more like a good day, I think. A proper fight to get things going. Hollow bait, the Vasto Lord says. Shinigami, why did you break hollow bait? Are you suicidal? Are you working with Aizen-sama, providing us a way into the Sirite? What is your motive? she asks. I wanted to get a good fight. I'm Kenpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, captain of the 8th Division. Mind telling me your name, Aranker-san? I ask. The Ahalable, Tercera Espada, she responds. I break out into a feral grin behind the mask of my helm and start laughing. Please tell me these Espada are ranked going from Primera as the strongest to Decima as the weakest, I say. She nods, and my laugh grows louder and more joyful. Excellent, a proper battle. From your mention of Aizen, I'm guessing you serve him. Is Espada a special title for his strongest warriors? I ask, interested in this. She nods again, and I start laughing like a hyena. These are my Frachian, lesser ranker who serve the Espada, Halibal explains. They are Apache, Mila Rose, and Sun Sun, she continues, pointing to each in turn. I've just been killing Ajuchas for an hour, so why not fight 3 more? I muse. Tell me Halibal-san, were you a Vasto Lord before your ascension to a ranker? I ask hopefully. When she nods yet again, I smile behind my helm, and it is the hungry smile of a predator that just spotted its next meal. Perfect. Let's fight then, I tell her. I seal Nejibana, as she isn't suitable for this battle. I sense that Halibal's Reiatsu is like the ocean, which indicates to me that a water-type Zanpakuto is a bad match against her. Instead, I draw Wabasuk. I haven't used him, and until she releases, he will suffice quite well. Raise your head, Wabasuk, I command, and he takes on his Shikai form. Apache starts laughing. What are you going to cut with that, Shinigami? She asks mockingly. I decide to respond with Wabasuk's true Shikai. Kira was always guilty whenever he drew his blade, and this could only be wielded by someone who took pride in his sword. You who are arrogant and proclaim your strength to the world, bend the knee and prostrate yourselves, I declare. This can only be brought forth when Wabasuk has entered its first Shikai state, and now it enters its second state, the true form of Wabasuk. The angled blade gleams darkly as it transforms. When it finishes, the blade is now a shining silver, gleaming brightly under the sun. The hilt extended into a staff-like shape, and a blade formed on each end. These blades are like its other shape and form, but gleaming instead of the normal dark color of the blade. The one pointed towards the ground has the kanji for earth on it, and the one pointing towards the sky has the kanji for heaven on it. Apache is suddenly on her knees, as are Sun Sun and Mila Rose. Halibal isn't even lucky enough to be on her knees. She has been smashed into the water, which I solidified with my Reiatsu earlier. She can't even raise her head a millimeter from where it is smashed sideways into the water. I switch which blade of Wabasuk is pointing towards the ground, and they suddenly fly into the sky until they slam into the barrier. Do you get it now? I ask them. No, Halibal chokes out. In its true Shikai, Wabasuk not only doubles the weight of whatever it cuts, but it controls gravity. The stronger you are, the more Reiatsu you have, the more this power affects you. You are very strong, Halibal-san. I doubt any but the 4 oldest captains would be affected as strongly as you are, I say. If Wabasuk cut something twice, the weight doubles a second time, by the way, making the weight 4 times the original weight. And so on and so forth, I tell her. Then I bring Wabasuk level, and they are smashed into the point exactly between the lake below and the barrier above, which is now solid thanks to Wabasuk's power. Mila Rose groans. Nice going, Apache. You got him to use this on us, she says. I bring Wabasuk's earth blade until it points towards them, and they slam into the walls, back first. I point the earth blade away from them, and they fly past me as I move forwards, drawing Zangetsu and slashing it across Halibal. As they slam into the wall, I turn and am rewarded with a spray of blood from Halibal. Apache grabs her blade, but is stopped from releasing by Sun Sun. I had long since activated the counter to the hollow bait, and Halibal's was the last Garganta. Apache, the more powerful we are, the more his blade gets us. Releasing is the worst thing we could do, Mila Rose says. Do you want to fight a bit more? I ask them. No, Yamamoto-san. I think I have had enough of being slammed into things, Halibal says. I nod, lowering Zangetsu. On my oath as the Tercera, release us and we will not attack, she continues. I reseal Wabasuk, and as they float away from the wall, they keep their word. You have a very intriguing power in that blade. Gravity cannot be fooled by illusions, and I take it affects the area regardless of friend or foe. She asks. I nod in affirmation. So that blade is stronger than Kyoka Sugetsu thanks to its power, she says. It is not a question, but a statement of a fact that is very clear to both of us. I nod unnecessarily. Defeat the Ta Espada without using that blade, and you will have my oath of service. You will likely be a kinder and more trustworthy master than Aizen, she says. I nod, certain of that much from what Kyoka Sugetsu has told me of his true nature. Halibal opens a Garganta, and she and her Frachian leave. I lower the barriers and Shunpo to join Sajin and Hitsugaya-senpai, who have been joined by Ichimari-chan. I will inform Kira of Wabasuk's true abilities if you have no objection, Ichimari-chan says. I nod. It will require that he take pride in his blade. So long as he is too ashamed to raise his blade in battle without feeling guilt over it, he cannot use Wabasuke's true Shikai, I tell her. She nods. I'll have to break him of that guilt then, she says. That is far too useful a power to not have around, she declares. I nod and shunpo over to my two officers, who were recording the battle and taking notes on my techniques, apparently. Nanao immediately stands up from where she was sitting, finishing up her notes, and snaps to attention. Ichigo, orders? She asks. We're returning to the 8th. I need a meal after that battle, I tell her. She nods, and the three of us shunpo away, heading for the division. Espada Ichigo, this is assuming that Ichigo achieved resurrection and was sent undercover to spy on Aizen, acting as if his hollow took over. Ichigo's path. Kurosaki, I wish to have your strength evaluated, Ulquiorra says. I am currently his Frachian, with an eye towards taking an Espada rank. I nod, ready to finally prove myself. You will fight the Segunda Espada, who has decided he is tired of your insolence and wishes to teach you a lesson, Ulquiorra continues. I always call the Segunda Baragan Jiji and rather enjoy the expression on his face when he hears that. We head towards the ground Ulquiorra tells me was designated for the battle, and I summon Raijin Jaka from my quarters and the sheathed blade materializes in my hand. Each of my Zanpakuto gives me a different appearance and a few different abilities in resurrection. When we arrive, I waste no time with pleasantries. Burn the universe to nothing, Raijin Jaka. I call, and flames engulf me as I enter resurrection. I take on a partially draconic appearance, massive skeletal wings extending behind me, with scales of flame extending between the bones. My clawed feet slam into the ground and create massive craters as I roar my fury to the skies, clawed hands clenched into fists. All in all, I have become an anthropomorphic dragon that appears to be made from darkness and fire, with the only thing not either my dark scales or the fiery veins running between them, the white armor that covers my head, taking the same shape as my head. The battle began the moment we were both here. Baragan starts saying something about how he won't even need resurrection to deal with me, due to his ultimate power as king of Hueco Mundo. I don't give him the chance to prattle on, as a zero forms at the tip of each of the horns on top of my head. The two horns release flames from their tip that wrap around the zeros, and the two attacks lance forth at an angle, meeting, merging, and forming into a massive zero that strikes forth and turns Baragan's head into ash. All this happens in a second, and before you can say God King of Hueco Mundo, the Segunda Espada has come down with a severe case of dead. Really, Kurosaki? Ulquiorra asks. Oops, my zero slipped my control, I say. Really, they did. Don't you believe me? Isn't this an honest look on my face? I ask, making the best sincere expression I can. Kurosaki, I am not qualified to read draconic facial expressions, Ulquiorra deadpans. Aizen steps forward. Well, it appears we have a new Segunda, he says. Would you keep the Frachian of the old Segunda or find your own? He asks. I consider this for a moment. I release my resurrection, step forwards towards the Frachian of my predecessor, and deck Geo Vega with a right hook. He leaps up and gets me in the jaw with an uppercut, and I start laughing. They'll do, I tell him, and the fates of my new Frachian are sealed. Captain present. Someone calls as I enter the dining halls at the 8th Division. There is a sudden rustle of robes as all rise and rush into ranks, forming up so I can see my whole division for the first time. I look at them, and 3,500 Shinigami look back. I curse my predecessor. Every single member of the 8th Division, now my division due to Kairaku being reassigned to 5th, is female except for me. At least I can take solace in what is happening to Kairaku right now. He was assigned to lead the 11th Division for a day, and I dropped in to see what was happening earlier. He is currently trapped fighting Ikaku, Yumichika, Yachiru, and Zaraki all at the same time, trying to rescue his sake from a few others of the 11th. I laugh quietly to myself over this, then compose myself. Seated officers, report to me for assignment to combat teams. The rest of you are to form into teams of 50, with at least 10 of each team having Shikai, I say. 5 close combat Shikai, 5 elemental if possible. Now, get moving. I bellow. These teams are for combat, not conversation, so if you think you can form up with your friends and talk while hollows eviscerate you, think again. Ais Fukatecho will be reviewing the roster of each team. The officer in charge will be the 51st member, and each one of the team with Shikai will be in charge of a team of 4 others, am I understood? So choose carefully, as I don't want officer-subordinate conflict, I bellow. There are shouts of assent as teams form swiftly, my seated officers striding forward from the mess. I can form 70 combat teams from the 3,500 Shinigami I have, and each team is expected to be able to secure a large area without further support from the Sirite, and operate in hostile territory for a year at a time, once I'm done beating them into combat-ready shape. They got plum assignments with minimal hollow presence before, but this will be a combat division, equal to the 11th, or I will turn in my Haori. I turn to my officers, of which I have 72 counting Nanao and Momo, who will have bankai once I'm done with them, and they will be my personal guards when I'm dispatched to a combat zone. I make a note to get some Tenshintai from Urahara. He mentioned their existence in an attempt to get on my good side when I was training at his shop. He really didn't want to become a pile of ash due to my severe aggravation about the shattered shaft. "Sir, awaiting assignment," Nanao says, reminding me of where I am. "Very well, Ice Fukatecho. First things first, you are to go make the rosters, with Momo helping to take names. Friends are to be split up if it is likely they will be distracted by each other, kept together if they fight well together. Now, teams are to be numbered 1 to 70. Strongest team will get the weakest officer, and the weakest team gets the strongest officer. Team 1 is to be the strongest, team 70 the weakest. Is that understood?" I ask her. She nods and heads over to making the roster. I turn to my other officers. So far, this division has gotten the very best lowest risk assignments ever since Kairaku took over. I am changing that. We will spend the next 2 months training, then we will deploy the teams. Any who do not have Shikai right now are to attain it. Put them in a scenario, best if it's a fight, where they honestly believe they will die if they don't get Shikai, as that will likely get them to access it fairly fast, I order. They nod, understanding. They are to be able to operate at peak efficiency for a year in enemy territory by the end of those 2 months, and I expect them to be able to secure an area roughly half the size of Japan and hold it in the face of opposition. That is very possible with good discipline, I say. Indeed, a voice comes from behind me. "Soifan Taicho. Why are you here?" I ask her as I turn around, interested in why the woman who tried to kill me twice came here where I have an entire division of backup if she is hostile. To apologize. I exceeded my orders when I was told to test you, and I then tried to kill you later, still believing you an enemy. I have heard that you are formally taking on the duty you were born for, and I wish to both congratulate you on having such resolve and apologize for my actions. I also apologize for the actions of my idiot lieutenant. He has been chastised and will not attempt anything similar again. If he does, he will be turned over to you with all possible speed, Soifan says. I offer the aid of the Onmitsukido, which relies on the kind of discipline you want to instill, to train your own division. Having another active combat division that can match the 11th, the 1st, or my own 2nd division in ability will be very welcome. Those 3 divisions currently do a lot of the work when it comes to hostile areas, and the combat teams you are forming should indeed be able to reach the ability level you want in the time you have with sufficient effort put in, she says. Indeed. This division will not be a division that leaves its comrades fighting the hard fights anymore, I declare. She nods and salutes me. I notice she was heavily injured by Kamamura, and it was probably only her insistence on doing her duty that got her out of the bed in the 4th. Her left arm is in a sling, her torso is wrapped in bandages, and she is limping slightly, and this is after an entire day under the attention of the 4th's best healers. She was definitely in very bad condition, and I harbor hopes that she learned something from the beating. Excellent. I will send over some of my seated officers in an hour. I trust your lieutenant will be greeting them? Soifan asks. I shake my head. No. My lieutenant and 3rd seat will be my guards whenever I have to enter the fray personally. They begin training for bankai immediately. Manifestation and combat training to start with. Once I feel they are prepared, they will be fighting their Zanpakuto, I tell her. Very well, I'll trust that your 4th seat will be here to greet them, Soifan says. I nod and give the order. Having a personal guard with bankai is certainly a good idea, given your power. You would do severe damage to the world of the living merely by existing, she says, and I cannot deny it. The more fights I can avoid when not in the living world, the better. My Riatsu cannot be sealed if I am to use my body. Thus, my guards need to be as strong as possible, which means that they need bankai. I turn away and walk towards the training grounds, resolved to begin immediately. Ah, sweet rest, I'm thinking in my temporary quarters at the 11th as I slowly stir myself to get up. It's about an hour before dawn, and I usually wake up this early so I can go to the division, hand out paperwork, and then go find a place to hide away from Nana-chan. Then a rude awakening comes. The pink-haired ball of energy in Shinigami robes, hyped up on sugar, slams the door open, rushes into the room, jumps up onto the bed, and starts leaping up and down on my stomach, babbling about how fun things are going to be. I'm in hell. I have to be. Who the hell wakes up this early besides me? Ichigo's Pav. I suddenly sneeze as I arrive at my new division to start the paperwork. Someone has to be talking about me, I decide, and vow to hunt them down and find out what they were saying, using Raijin Jaka as coercion if necessary. Right after my fight with Hollows later today to build up my bond with Nijabana. Aiku's Pav. I sneeze suddenly as I practice the art of calligraphy. Ichigo will naturally want someone who is refined and a master of the arts to teach him how to fit into the society of his fellow nobles. I decided to practice all of the fine arts, including some I have avoided such as flower arrangement, to use to better attract him. The stroke jars my brush and ruins the character I was drawing. I am not ill, so someone was talking about me. Likely one of those perverts who have been talking about me since I revealed my true gender. I resolve to hunt the person down and punish them with Senbansakura Kageashi. I will begin with the most perverted person in the Sirite, Kairaku Shunsui, and work from there until I find the culprit. Aries Pav. I suddenly sneeze and the experiment I was working on is ruined. Someone was talking about me, as that is the only thing that can cause me to sneeze anymore. I will find the person who made me ruin this experiment and introduce them to Kanjiki Ashisogi Jizo, I vow. Soifans Pav. I sneeze and am instantly on guard. My finely honed senses tell me Kairaku Shunsui was just talking about me, and I resolve to both find out what he was talking about and to punish him with Yakuho Reikabun for his perversion and lack of devotion to duty. Kairaku's Pav. I suddenly have a chill go down my spine and wonder if I can't land myself in the 4th division for the rest of the day. I think I'll be safer under Anohana's tender mercies than anywhere else. Yuichiro is bouncing up and down on my stomach and I thank Jiwoo-chan for her advice to deal with her as I shove a cookie I was keeping on the bedside table into her mouth. She quickly devours it and drags me out of bed and I barely have time to throw my robes on as she attempts to drag me out the door. I anticipate that she is going to drag me to the office to do paperwork, but instead she drags me to the practice fields with the entire 11th division, newly recalled, waits with drawn blades. I curse and go for my own blades, only to find Yuichiro grab them and is on a wall playing with them right now. I am about to lunge for the blades when the 11th division speaks in unison, declaring their release commands. 2,500 shikai are released, and the entire division charges me. Damn it, I hate my life right now so damn much. 3 hours later the members of the 11th are finally beaten down, through Hakuto alone. Then I see Madaram and Zaraki dragging a sled loaded with cases of sake bottles onto the field. My sake stores, which I keep at my personal residence. I go pale. Plenty of sake right here, come and get it. Madaram calls and the members of the division drag themselves to their feet. Yuichiro tosses me my swords as Zaraki, Asagawa, Madaram, and Yuichiro all draw their swords. I shunpo over, taking up a guard stance, then there is a flash of green light and more sleds appear. The transport Kido, which brought all of my personal stores of the very highest quality sake that can be found in either the Sirite or Rukongai here. The finest collection in any dimension. And it has just been offered up to a division that spends their time either fighting, drinking at their division, drinking at a bar, or fighting at a bar, and sometimes they are drinking and fighting at the same time. Ooh. I roar, my blades instantly released. I will fight to the last breath to protect my sake. With a slam of my fists together, I cast a Kido to protect my sake. I lift them into the air using Ryatsu, then declare the names of the spells, not even needing an incantation for full power, given the ability I've developed with Kido over the years. Ryubi no Joman. Koko no Joman. Bikai no Joman. Hoyoku no Joman. Shiji no Seiman. Kido Hachi uses to contain Baragan and Bleach, so Soifan can kill him. If anyone in the 11th can break that, I'll eat my hat. As Zaraki charges, I bring forth another Kido. Bakudo 81. Denku. The wall forms and Zaraki's blade smashes right through it. I dodge and curse my luck in this assignment. I parry the incoming blades and begin another incantation as the entire division charges me, led by Zaraki with his eye patch nowhere to be seen. Senju no hate, Tadakazaru yami no might, Itsurazaru ten no ite. Hikari wo itozu michi, Hidane wo oru kase. Sudoi tomato na, Wagayubi wo mio. Koden, Hasan, Kujo, Tenkei, Shippo, Darren, Hiro no Hodo. Yumehiku Kanada, Koko Tashai Kiyu. Limit of the 1,000 hands, respectful hands, unable to touch the darkness. Shooting hands unable to reflect the blue sky. A road that basks in light, the wind that ignited the embers, time that gathers when both are together, there is no need to be hesitant, obey my orders. Light bullets, 8 bodies, 9 items, Book of Heaven, Disease Treasure, Great Wheel, Grey Fortress Tower. Aim far away, scatter brightly and cleanly when fired. Heido number 91, Senju Koten Taiho. I call, and the blasts of energy impact Zaraki, throwing him back through the wall. I'm not at the level of the previous Kido Corps captain and lieutenant, who could match Bankai with Kido alone, but I'm good enough to deal with Zaraki using Kido alone. If he doesn't have Shikai. The battle begins, and Kidos start flying from me as I battle the division, determined to preserve my sake. When the sun is finally setting and the entire division is once more face down in the dirt, I am on my knees, panting in exhaustion, my robes in tatters, both arms broken, one of my legs a pulp mess. That means I'll be spending a week in the care of the fourth, 13 of my ribs broken, one of my lungs punctured, and my right kidney smashed. Both eyes are definitely going to be black eyes, and I don't even want to imagine the state of the rest of my face. Yuichiro comes over and looks down at me, then picks me up, sets me over her shoulders, and leaps towards the 4th division. It turns into a very jarring ride which includes her using my body as a flail to beat up on a few Shinigami for fun. When she finally arrives at the 4th, she enters the main room and unceremoniously dumps me in the middle of the floor. I groan in agony as the healers of the 4th run over and pick me up, beginning healing Kido. Finally, this day is over. I force myself to speak through split and bleeding lips. By sake. Contained in Shiji no Seiman. Someone go fetch it. I refuse to be healed until I know it is safe, I say, and flare my Riatsu, breaking the healing Kido. An hour later, I can see my sake is safe, put just outside my room in the 4th. I finally give in to the healers and rejoice that this day is over at last. I stand before Momo and Nanao under the afternoon sun and prepare to speak. I just entered Nanao's inner world with permission and spoke with her Zanpakuto. I apologized for having Nanao force bankai from her, but there is no other way in this case. Her Zanpakuto will not give her bankai away. Nanao has not enough personal understanding of either herself or her Zanpakuto to achieve it through understanding of her Zanpakuto. It will have to be battle, regrettably. Momo has the same problem. They will have to achieve understanding after bankai is managed. I draw a Rokujaku, deciding to use him for this. If drained of their Riatsu, once they recover it, their power will have built up more. Along the lines of working out a muscle. I'll restore their Riatsu myself though to avoid losing training time. I then decide just to get things started. Nanao already told Momo why they will be fighting their Zanpakuto, as she overheard my conversation with her Zanpakuto. Split and deviate, Ruri Rokujaku, I say. The blade becomes a 4-bladed falx, glowing green for a moment. I wait for Momo and Nanao to draw their blades, then catch them in Ruri Rokujaku's vines. He disobeys my wish to catch them in 2 separate sets of vines, and instead catches them in 1 set, pressing them together face to face, and he forces the vines to press them into a kiss. I am furious, to say the least. Ruri Rokujaku. Explain yourself this instant. I thunder in my mind. A more beautiful sight there never was before, is all he says. Momo's and Nanao's Riatsu is drained, and I summon the flowers to me with a Riatsu burst. I go over and force each of them to eat the flowers, then flare my Riatsu to fill their now slightly increased reserves up. My apologies. Ruri Rokujaku is a pervert, I growl out. If Ichi-chan likes seeing it, I don't mind at all, Momo says, blushing. A sudden brain overload hits me. What the hell? I enter my inner world for a second and sense Bonzakura beating up on Ruri Rokujaku. I leave my inner world as my brain comes back online. Momo, let's get back to training. You need to build up your Riatsu, I say, chasing away the evil thoughts that entered my head when Momo said what she did. Then I sense Abarai coming up behind me. Sir, she says. Abarai Renji, reporting for duty, she continues. 2 questions, I respond. What are they, sir? She asks. First, why did you keep your name the same? I thought a gender change might affect your name at least a bit, I say. Second, what the hell do you mean, reporting for duty? I ask. Your great-grandfather assigned me to this division, declaring me your 3rd seat along with Hinamori-san, Renji says. As for my name, I'm too used to being called Renji to change now, so I decided to keep my name the same as it was before my change, she continues. Fine. You need bankai. Start meditating. We'll see if you can achieve it the hard way, I tell her. This necessitates a half-hour-long explanation of precisely what the hard way to gain bankai is, then Renji finally enters Jinzen as I return to training the other 2 and increasing their Riatsu. They need captain class Riatsu before they attempt bankai. They have lieutenant class now. I will not let up on them. I hear shouts as the Onmitsukido trainers that were sent run the 8th division into the ground, determined to make something of them. The 8th is now very much regretting all the excellent assignments they got before, as the Onmitsukido apparently holds a grudge over them getting the easy work, while the 2nd suffered and died on the front lines. As Nanao and Momo spar, I enter Jinzen as well to speak with Zangetsu for a little while, and learn more about how I can use the Jutsuga Tenshu. I figure out a new trick to pull with Shikai, and a couple new applications of my bankai. I also speak with Kikao and start learning his techniques. He is just as strong as Raijin Jaka, but he is a more focused flame, a scalpel instead of a broadsword. I can definitely use that. I start thinking up a dozen uses for it immediately and smirk evilly as one application comes to mind. Near the end of the day, someone unfamiliar approaches me. Yamamoto Taicho. I am Izuru Kira, lieutenant of the 3rd Division. I humbly request that you teach me how to take pride in my blade so I might use Wabasuke's full power, he says glumly. I stand up and look at him from behind my helm. There is no fire in his eyes. There is no pride in his skill or achievements. There is only disgust with himself. No, I growl through gritted teeth. You have no fire. You have no pride in anything at all. Leave here, I can teach you nothing without that pride, without the fires of battle. Go to the 11th, learn to enjoy fighting. When you have done so, return and I will teach you, I tell him. He slumps at the first word, then perks up as I continue. You will teach me? He asks. I nod, seeing he got my point. But your teachings will do no good right now, so you won't teach me yet, he clarifies. Again I nod. I hear and obey. I will return ready to learn from you. I dislike fighting. But I would do anything to protect the Sirte. So I will learn to enjoy battle, he says. I smile. Care to join me and Kamamura for a drink in a couple hours? I think you'll fit in well, with that kind of sense of duty, I tell him. I will be honored to accept the invitation, sir, Kira says. Call me Ichigo, my friend, I tell him. He nods. Yes, see Ichigo, he corrects himself in the middle of his sentence. Good. Friends don't call each other sir, I tell him. Use my name when you address me, I state. He nods, salutes, then turns to leave. He heads towards the barracks of the 11th and I raise one hand and salute as he leaves. He'll go far, given time to gain some pride, I decide. I am in my office, 2 other chairs at my desk and several bottles of sake at the ready as Kamamura and Kira enter. Both are wearing their robes and carrying their Zanpakuto, as they should. A Shinigami should always carry their blade, regardless of where they are going. I open one of the bottles and pour sake into the 3 saucers on the desk, ready for us to drink. Kamamura sits in the larger of the 2 chairs, as Kira occupies the other. We sit in silence and just enjoy the sake for a while, then Kira speaks up. Sir, why did you take to me so readily? He asks. That particular question is a very good one and one I can answer fairly easily. Kira, I already know you well because I know Wabasuke. At his core, he is you, your ideals, your goals. He was born from your soul, to be your companion. He is the blade you wanted when it came to abilities then, and he can still be that blade now, if you can learn to have pride in yourself, I say. Kira looks thoughtful. So, to know the Zanpakuto is to know the wielder to some extent, he muses. Sajin looks at me, and I nod. We can both count him a friend given his personality. I learned about him from Wabasuke as well, and I know that with a little time, Kira can become someone strong enough to stand by both of us. Ichigo, Kamamura Taicho, he is interrupted by Sajin. My name is Sajin, Kira, Sajin says. Kira gets the hint. Ichigo, Sajin, could you please manifest your Zanpakuto? He asks. I nod, as does Sajin, and we flare our Reiatsu. Earlier, I was working a healing Kido to restore Reiatsu, so a Reiatsu flare would restore Reiatsu, rather than depleting it. But now, Kira winces as we call our Zanpakuto into this world. We manifested them in the dining hall, as this office isn't large enough for all of mine, and too small in the ceiling area for Tinkin, I say. Kira nods, and with a minor Kido, we are walking towards the dining hall, sake in tow. On the way, we stop for a bit and fetch more sake so we'll have enough for everyone. As we enter the room, we see the Zanpakuto have pushed a few tables together so we have a place to sit and talk while we drink. Blades are in evidence, and a couple of my Zanpakuto, namely Kai no Ti no Megami and Benahim, have drawn their blades and are at each other's throats. Zangetsu and Nijibana are over in a corner talking, most likely comparing notes on me in each life. Zabumaru, in the more human form rather than the form of a male baboon with a snake for a tail, is arguing between its 2 selves. Suzumashi is currently enumerating my praises to Sanbanzakura. Ever since I refused to let her die and kept visiting her every day when I entered Jinzen, Suzumashi has refused to find any evil in me, any faults at all. When in Jinzen, she will usually help me refine some trick of hers or work on my Reiatsu sensing abilities, though I have to practice outside my inner world to get the techniques down properly. The severe time dilation in my inner world is something to be thankful for, as I can spend a very long time enjoying the company of my Zanpakuto. Sajin and Kira will be anchors to this world, the waking world, so I don't simply retreat into Jinzen whenever I'm not needed. Sanbansakura seems all too eager to listen to Suzumashi. So I will need to get to know all of these Zanpakuto to get a proper idea of who you 2 are. Well, you need only to get to know Wabasuke, Sajin, Kira says. He is apparently getting used to informality as the night wears on and he drinks more. Indeed. But only the giant is mine, the others are Ichigo's, and the giant is part of Ichigo as well, Sajin says, amused by Kira's statement. No better time to get to know someone than over sake, Kira responds, as I set the bottles of sake and saucers at the table. Everyone comes over to grab a seat and the drinking begins. The next morning. I have finished my paperwork and the paperwork of Momo, Renji, and Nanao when a messenger bursts into my office. I look up from the last sheet of paper that I just filled out and glare at him. My helm is off, so the glare is quite easily visible. The Riatsu slamming him into the floor is also a good indication of displeasure. "Taicho, the Satacho requests your presence immediately," he chokes out, struggling to breathe. I lift my Riatsu from him. "Next time, knock," I say as I walk out of the room, robes billowing behind me as I don my helm. I have 2 hours left before the rest of the division arrives, and hopefully I can get this done in time. I vanish into Shunpo, heading with all speed for the 1st Division barracks. When I arrive, I am immediately sent to Yamajiji's office, and I take care to knock and receive permission to enter before I do so. Yamajiji, his lieutenant Madaram, and Kuritsuchi are in the office as well. We exchange pleasantries, then Yamajiji asks me why I used manners such as knocking when I naturally didn't have to, as his only remaining family. Your messenger burst into my office most rudely. The next time one of them does that, I crush them out of existence with my Riatsu, I warn. He nods, accepting this and likely resolving to warn his messengers or chastise this one for his lack of manners, which I resolve to get a video of to show my messengers. "You are wondering why I have called you here," Yamajiji states after a few minutes of silence. I nod, having been curious. "I am interested, yes," I tell him. "Kuritsuchi Taicho and 3rd Seat Madaram made a request I feel you should indulge," he says. "If you first answer a question, I will indulge the request," I say. He nods. "Why was I given Abarai and as a 3rd seat?" I ask. "You had no 3rd seat before Hinamori took up the position. Kichiki Taicho requested to give you Abarai to assist you while you became used to the position, so I reassigned Abarai as per her request. However, if I made Abarai a lieutenant, you would then be obliged to make your 3rd seat, also a former lieutenant, hold the position of lieutenant as well, and though I may tolerate Yushiro having 2 3rd seats and am perfectly prepared to indulge you in the same manner, I will not have a captain with 3 lieutenants and no 3rd seat," Yamajiji says. Logical indeed. I nod, understanding his position. "Though I have heard of you doing all the paperwork for yourself and all your seated officers, and found it quite amusing. Abarai is to prevent you doing that again, however," Yamajiji continues, now smiling at this event. "Abarai will have bankai, as will Ice Fukatecho and 3rd Seat Hinamori, within 2 months. When I am deployed, they will be my personal guard. I am also of a mind to train my other seated officers, all of whom are experienced, and get them to attain the same. I would order Tenshintai in bulk from Urahara or Kuritsuchi Taicho, if the latter should know how to make them," I say. Yamajiji nods. "You seek to turn them into an active combat force on par with the 1st, 2nd, or 11th. I approve of this and will have you given what you need to do this," Yamajiji says. Kuritsuchi Taicho is nodding. "So long as you return the Tenshintai to me later so I might evaluate them," he says. I nod, as the information gained from this will be interesting, most likely. He knows better than I about what might be figured out from them, so I leave him to it and get a summary in a few months. Now, onto the important matters. Since you cannot be a test subject for me directly as to how a bond with multiple Zanpakuto influences and changes you, I wish to study it indirectly. For my bond with Ashisogi Jizo, I can study the effects without doing undue damage, which would cause the unreasonable to restrict the progress of science, and see how the hole in your soul that allows this might be closed slightly, he says, indignant when he mentions people restricting the progress of science. "You will study me through your bond with Ashisogi Jizo?" I ask. He nods, and I consider. It will certainly be useful. The hole in my soul is vast, and as Zanpakuto's realm occupies a very small space in the soul. I could take on thousands of Zanpakuto and still not fill the hole fully, but I am not so greedy, nor are there so many willing to bond with me. But just a few will improve my Riatsu control immensely, which will prove helpful later. I take you have a similar request, Madaram-san? I ask. You are Kenpachi, even if you aren't captain of the 11th. Since I cannot raise my blade as one of your squad, I wish you to raise that blade in your defense. Also, I want to see if you can beat me when we're both using Hazukimaru. He has already agreed to forming this bond, Madaram says. I have no objections to either of your Zanpakuto bonding to me as well, if they and you agree. I will fight you once I figure Hazukimaru's fighting style out, which will take a couple of weeks with my habit of training in my inner world, then reinforcing it by training in the world of the waking, I say. He nods, grinning. How's this to be done? Yamajiji asks. Enter Jinzen, both of you. There is a strong path into my inner world any Zanpakuto can follow, and I have no objections to you joining us for this, using the shared connection to Ryujin Jaka, Yamajiji, I say. He nods, and all four of us enter Jinzen, finding ourselves, all my Zanpakuto spirits, and two spirits who I assume are Ashisogi Jizo and Hizukimaru in the sideways city of Zanjetsu. The cow takes the form of a tall man with wings of fire, whose has flames replacing his hair. His feet and hands are clawed, and he wears the full armor of a samurai save for the helm, which currently rests under one arm. Usually he takes the form of a giant phoenix, but I find I prefer this form. Suzumashi stands forward and speaks. Ichigo-sama, whose praises cannot be enumerated fully, for in truth they are endless, I will speak for the others here. We gladly accept the presence of Hizukimaru and Ashisogi Jizo, for in truth the more powerful you should be, the gladder it should make us that you are better protected by other strong Zanpakuto, she declares. I nod and look at the other Zanpakuto spirits currently bonded to me. Each of them nods, clearly resigned. Hizukimaru raises one hand and his realm forms. A giant dojo in the center of a wild, untamed area where mountains, glaciers, a small ocean, and several others harsh terrains reign. Perfect for training the body and testing yourself, a suitable realm for a kaku. Ashisogi Jizo also raises a hand and a massive garden takes form, with forests surrounding it. The garden is filled with poisonous plants, I notice, and I do not doubt the forest is filled with creatures and plants that have similar toxins. The two vanish, and I sense them in their realms, then turn to the other two. Mayuri is muttering to himself some theory that doesn't interest me too much, and Ikaku is grinning. Yamajiji has opened his eyes, looking interested. I leave Jinzen and open my eyes as the other two do as well. Well, that went well, I say. The other three nod. Is there anything else, Yamajiji? I ask. He shakes his head, and I leave, vanishing into Shunpo, determined to get to the 8th in time to train for an hour or so before the division members arrive. I arrive at the division just in time to get in an hour of training before the members of the squad arrive. Once they arrive, my officers collect their paperwork to do this evening, once they're tired from training. I also decided to help them out a little with relaxing after training. Just before the division comes out onto the practice fields to begin, I'm occupying one of the fields, Nejibana and Hineko drawn. What are you doing, Taicho? Nanao asks. I answer unconventionally. Suiton Sakamake, Nejibana. Growl, Hineko. Bankai, Kazuneko, I say. The blades release their power, and I begin. First, I raise walls of lava around the training field, then cool them with water from Nejibana. With a minor application of Riatsu on the obsidian thus created, I change the structure of the Reishi, making it up, turning it into walls of marble, encircling the majority of the former training field, with a single entrance into the enclosed area. I walk to the center of the area, lift one foot, and slam it into the ground with my Riatsu backing the strike up. A shallow depression about 2.5 meters deep forms. I use Kazuneko and Nejibana once more to form steps and a rim to the depression, which stops at the wall I previously made. The rim is about 2 meters wide and 1.5 meters tall. The steps extend to it, merge into it, then continue from where it ends. I then proceed to begin some subtler manipulation of my blades. I use Kazuneko and Nejibana to create a layer of stone covering all of the dirt up, with no cracks for water to seep out. I connect this stone layer to the walls and smooth it out with a minor hado that creates a razor wind. I use the same keto to smooth the rest of the stone I've made. Then, using Kazuneko, I bring some lava a little bit closer to the surface and create a contained pool of it not too far below this area. Then I leap back onto the dirt just outside the newly sealed against water seepage area, raise Nejibana, and fill the area with water. The entire area I just created is now underwater. Nanao still looks puzzled at my actions until steam begins rolling off the water. I just created a hot spring for them, and it will not be difficult to maintain the water levels with Nejibana. When the water has finished reaching its warmest point, I kneel down in the entrance, remove one gauntlet, and touch a finger to the water. A perfect temperature. Sir. What is that? Nanao asks. The spring is about 100 meters wide in all directions. I turn and repeat the process with 3 more of our training fields. By now, most of those in the 8th division are puzzled, as they have not gotten a proper view of what I made yet. I shunpo over to join the group and face Nanao. I thought the division might appreciate a few hot springs for after the training is done, I say. The entire division and the female trainers from the Onmitsukido turn to me. You just made 4 hot springs for us to enjoy after training. One of them asks. I nod. I will be asking the 12th to assist in creating an artificial waterfall in each one. I will also have them install doors and make sure that no water seepage will occur, I say, but get nothing more out before Momo has me in a vice grip of a hug, babbling thanks. When the Onmitsukido trainers finally restore order and pry my seated officers off of me, they begin forming into groups and heading past me towards the training fields. I call to my seated officers and one of my messengers. Yes sir. The messenger, a Haruno Akane whose name I remembered due to introducing myself to the messengers of my division last night before I went to drink with Kira and Sajin. I raise my hand with notes in it to Byakuya and Jushiro, inviting them to join me for sake, along with Kira and Sajin tomorrow night. Deliver these notes to the ones they are addressed to. Do not read them. Then go to the 12th division and request that Kuritsuchi Taicho see me immediately. Use proper manners, of course. Tell him that if he complies, I will allow him to observe the powers of Raijin Jaka and Bankai. That will interest him, I think, I say. She nods, then I hand the notes to her. She glances at the names on them and vanishes into Shunpo. I turn to my seated officers. Orders, sir. Why did you call us from the groups? One asks. My 15th seat, Sajin's sister, who wears armor and helm similar to his. Hamamura Kurenai, I say. As well as the rest of you, will immediately begin training to achieve Bankai, I tell them. They all look shocked. Bankai, sir? Like my brother has? Kurenai asks. Did I stutter? I said Bankai. All of you will immediately begin training for it. I have ordered Tenshintai in bulk. You have 1 month to improve your abilities with Shikai, your relationship with your Zanpakuto, and your Reiatsu levels. To do this, you will train with me. We begin immediately, am I clear? I ask them all. Yes, sir. Is the resounding chorus. All of them follow me to a new training ground where we can begin sparring immediately. I pass the day until noon sparring with them, then we break for lunch. Kuritsuchi Taicho has arrived by now, and Akane apparently dropped by the 4th and got them to prepare lunches for us. Unohana Taicho and Aizen are with a group of 4th division members who walk up the grassy hill towards our field carrying bentos as we rest in the shade of the willow trees by the field. A small river winds by this training field, making it a restful place where both meditation and training can be done at the same time. Why are all your officers here, Yamamoto Taicho? Aizen asks. If it isn't impertinent to ask, of course. I have no wish to offend, she says. They are one and all training to achieve Bankai. They will all be leaders of combat teams meant to operate anywhere, even Hueco Mundo itself, at peak efficiency for a year at a time. They are meant to be able to cover areas half the size of Japan, with 50 Shinigami apiece. I feel Bankai is needed, I say. Unohana Taicho nods. Very wise. Maybe you wouldn't mind sending some of your division's members to me to learn Kido and healing techniques? She asks. That would increase ability to operate, so I don't even need to think about it. I will send the 10 best Aikido from each team to learn from you, 3 days a week, all day. Show no mercy, they have 2 months to be up to par. I expect them to be able to fight with Kido alone and defeat Inajuchas, I say. Is that possible? I ask her. She nods sharply, resolve imprinting itself on her features. It is. I will train them all 24 hours of each day they are sent to me to achieve this goal, Yamamoto Taicho. Your division will prove itself very quickly under your leadership, I should think. May the 4th have access to your hot springs as well in return for this? She asks. I nod, as that is fair payment for the trouble she will go to. Thank you. We won't abuse the privilege, I assure you, but some of our healers work hard each day on the 11th and Shinigami brought back from the front lines, and getting reliable access to a decent spring for them to relax in after a long day of work is always difficult, she tells me. I nod, understanding this problem. Feel free to use the springs whenever you wish. I have no objection, I tell her. I then turn to Kuritsuchi Taicho, who just finished setting up a lot of equipment, his lieutenant helping him. I draw Raijin Jaka to keep my end of the deal and walk into the center of the training field. What do you want in return for the data I will gain from this? Kuritsuchi Taicho asks. I will give you 5 minutes to collect data. In return, your division immediately, within the next 2 hours, sets up doors and artificial waterfalls for the springs, as well as ensuring no water seepage will occur in those springs, I say. Very well. I will even add an extra feature. From researching the Dangai, we figured out the secret to altering space. They will be larger on the inside than the outside. Indeed, each spring will be large enough for your whole division and connected only through the door to the space we will create, he says. I must admit, he is a genius. A mad genius, but a genius. Very well, I say. Wordlessly, Raijin Jaka is released. Bankai, Zenka no Tachi, I say. Raijin Jaka enters Bankai, and the tests begin. Excellent, this will be invaluable data for my research, Kuritsuchi Taicho says as he begins his examination. 5 minutes later, the obligation is discharged, and his lieutenant has already gotten the 12th division started on the project, using transport Kido to move the needed materials. I nod in respect to my fellow Taicho, which he has grudgingly earned from me due to how hard he is to kill properly, and join my seated officers for lunch. Amik. Espada Ichigo Part 2. Ichigo's Pav. Your Majesty, what are your orders? Gio asks. I contemplate for a moment, then decide to honor my predecessor. He had a bit of an ego, but his power was vast enough that he deserved it. Is the former Segunda's body still existing? I ask. He nods reluctantly. Then retrieve it. He deserves a burial in honor, as his power dictates nothing less. He never liked Aizen, and since Aizen is out of the fortress right now, dealing with a vast lord and his kingdom, we'll bury Baragan in Aizen's throne room. We'll rip up the stone, set Baragan under it, and replace the stone. I'm taking his Zanpakuto for myself, however. I want to see if I can use it for resurrection, I tell Geo. He nods eagerly. As you command, your majesty, he says. Half an hour later, the burial is done, the Primera and Tercera, as well as their Frachian having attended the ceremony. Charlotte decides to grace this funeral with a show of beauty, and I turn to him, one eyebrow raised as he draws his Zanpakuto. Stark Senpai has a blindfold on and earplugs in, and I swiftly follow his example. Then Charlotte releases. Your majesty, requesting orders, Geo begs. I can see and hear a little of Charlotte, and I act immediately to preserve my sanity. Kill him. Now. Him, as in the only rancor in resurrection in this room, I say. We can't do that, your majesty, Geo says. To kill him, we would have to enter resurrection ourselves. He is far too good at dodging, so we would have to touch him to kill him, and worse, look at him, Geo says in utmost revulsion. I decide this abomination can be stomached not a second longer. I draw Baragan's Zanpakuto. Arrogante, I say, and barely keep my Riatsu from flaring enough to damage Las Notches as I successfully enter resurrection. Respira, I say, and age the abomination out of existence, ending the misery of everyone here. How interesting. An Arancor using another Arancor's Zanpakuto, Sizel says. He is at the door, and I panic as I leave resurrection. You will be very interesting to dissect, test subject Segunda. I'll dissect the others as well to find out how they are so strong, of course, and figure out the Primera's unique resurrection, he says. Run. Now, we need to get away from this madman, I order, and we all vanish into Sanido, heading for the Primera's palace, which is the closest. Aizen will be back, along with Tausen and Jin, in 3 weeks. They are the only ones who Sizel will listen to, and I can't blow my painstakingly constructed cover to escape. Killing Sizel isn't an option, as Aizen frowns on killing his only scientist and would be furious with us for doing so. This is going to be a very long 3 weeks, I think. As I eat with my officers, I am rather enjoying the conversation I'm having on Zanjutsu techniques with Kurenai, discussing the advantages of overwhelming the foe with pure power, as opposed to relying on excellence of technique. Tenkin is not a blade for technique, but rather a blade meant to overwhelm, while a blade like Hazukimaru has a careful art to its use, as its Shikai has 2 different states, and its unsealed form is best used in combination with its sheath. Others of my blades are just as varied in the technique they use, so I have some experience with varied Zanjutsu styles that allows me to hold my own in the debate on which techniques are more useful. When we're about halfway through the lunch hour, I feel Sajin approaching and rise to greet him. He has Tenkin in hand, and I similarly draw Zanjutsu. Are you here to spar, Sajin? I ask him. He shakes his head and lashes out with the flat of Tenkin, shattering his sister's helm. No. I am not here to spar, but rather to enjoy a meal, Ichigo. Kurenai, he says, turning to his sister, who is revealed as also being wolf-like, though her features are more feminine and her fur is a more vibrant shade of red. Hold your head high with pride, as I do now. Let none detract from you due to your appearance, but rather ignore them, he says. Uruno Akane, who joined the officers for lunch at my invitation, is quietly making known to Nanao her opinion that Kurenai is half hollow, due to her beast-like appearance, which of course is not found among humans. Uruno Akane, I say before Sajin or Kurenai can't say anything. Nanao is looking at the messenger with disapproval. Draw your blade. You will be sparring with me immediately, I say. She starts laughing. Nice joke, Captain. Didn't know you had a sense of humor. Why bother doing anything for freaks like those two? She asks. Besides, I don't have Shikai yet. You'd be reprimanded for sparring with me, and my family is a noble family, so you would be censured by the Central 46 for attacking me, Kurosaki Taicho, she says. You got my name wrong. Apparently you have only read the original surveillance reports. It has been confirmed for some time that I am the Sateicho's great-grandson and heir. Also, both of those who you insult are superior officers, one of them a captain, so there is no way I would receive even a slight slap on the wrist for the reprimand I am about to deliver. I would be more likely commended for it. Finally, if you don't have Shikai and are going to just rely on your noble status, you are unfit for the 8th division I am creating, so once you heal from this spar, you will be discharged in dishonor from the ranks of the 8th division. If another division wants you, they're welcome to you, but I doubt you'll find a captain that will take you, I say. She has gone white in shock. Ichigo, you can't mean that, she says. I meant every word. Draw your blade, now. I will not hold back, I tell her, then lift Zangetsu parallel to the ground, grasping it in my right hand. Bankai, I say, and with that the black and red energy that was spiraling around the blade erupts into a tornado of Ryatsu that reaches into the cloudy sky and rends the heavens asunder, destroying the clouds completely. The dark energy spreads, blanketing the sky and blocking out the sun, causing darkness to descend over the Serite and the first 20 districts of the Rukongai. Tensa Zangetsu, I say, and bring the blade forward, snapping away the enclosing tornado, which causes the energy to dissipate. I will not say it again. Draw your blade, or die where you stand, I tell her. She reaches with a single shaking hand for her blade and grasps the hilt, holding onto it like a lifeline. She draws the blade, then gets slammed in the gut by a punch from me, throwing her onto the training field. Everyone is watching now, and they were informed of my reasons for disciplining her or are being informed quickly. The Onmitsukido are nodding in approval of my actions, as are most of the rest of the division. Ichigo, stand down and seal your blade. A threat like this will bring a reprimand from my family, who will see you dishonorably discharged instead of me, but I suppose I can forget this if you stand down right now, Haruno says in a futile attempt to calm me. My family is the Yamamoto. I am superior in lineage. I am a captain and superior in power. The Central 46 is dead by Aizen's hand and we are under martial law. We are at war. Who is needed more? You or me? I ask her, and she goes so pale that her skin is almost transparent. With trembling hands she raises her blade and I charge, intent on getting this over with quickly. A minute later she is being tended to by the healers of the 4th, my bankai is sealed once more and I'm eating as if nothing ever happened. Sajin looks at her, then joins me, unconcerned. The rest of the people here take the example and start eating again, pointedly ignoring the battered messenger. When we return to training, those who were complaining about the regiment before are suddenly dedicated to it and maintain excellent discipline. It seems the example I made motivated them nicely to keep proper discipline when on duty. Off duty, opinions are their own, and I will not intervene. On duty, their opinions are what I say they are. This is a military organization, and they had damn well better understand that. 6 weeks later. Ichigo, I did it. Kurenai says. I achieved bankai. She calls happily. You successfully defeated your Zanpakuto then, I say. It is a statement of fact. I could sense that she had achieved bankai before she said anything. I have achieved the bankai of all but Ashisogi Jizo, Senbonzakura and Ejibana among my Zanpakuto, and I'm close to Senbonzakura's bankai. I've gained the ability from this to sense the presence of bankai in someone without them ever telling me anything. What is it? I ask her. Her Zanpakuto is similar to Kamamura's in that it summons something, but she is more Aikido type, and her Zanpakuto reflects this as well. Hello, Ten no Akari. She says. Her blade stays as it was, but I can sense the Shikai. Bankai, Yozo Akado. Wrathful kings of the elements, around her, 4 spheres of light, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 green, and 1 red form, and then shoot out until they form a square, each light about 20 meters, 65 feet from her. Then they transform. The white light becomes a tornado of razor-edged winds. The red light becomes a pillar of fire. The green light becomes a massive monolith made of black marble and crystal. The blue light becomes a pillar of water. Ice. Lightning. Lava. Darkness, Kurenai says, and 4 more lights, these ones light blue, yellow, dark red, and black form, then they too shoot out, and octagon forms, as the new lights become pillars of ice, lightning, lava, and shadows, reaching into the sky. Then they start changing shape. The tornado splits at the base, and the top narrows. Smaller tornadoes reach out from the sides, taking on the shape of arms. The original tornado becomes the body of a massive samurai warrior, which, except for being made of razor-edged winds, looks exactly like Kakujo Tenjin Myo. Similar giants form from the other pillars, and as Kurenai raises her blade, they copy her. She is now encased in full armor looking precisely like that of Kakujo Tenjin Myo, and her left arm is occupied with a massive tower shield, which her giants also have, I notice. An excellent bankai. Can they act alone? I ask her. Yes, they can. I still have to be controlling at least one at all times, though, Kurenai says. I nod. This bankai could probably eventually match Kakujo Tenjin Myo, but right now it cannot do so. It has versatility and strength, but that strength needs control which Kurenai has not yet developed. Sir. I challenge you for the rights to Ten no Akari. I want to test my bankai against one of your bankai. Should you win, Ten no Akari will bond to you as well. He insisted on it as a condition of his allowing me to challenge for bankai, she says. I raise one eyebrow. Very well. I take it Ten no Akari disliked you hiding your face like your brother did? I ask. She nods. It requires my acceptance of him for the bond to form. If you don't want me to accept him, I will not. I have enough power right now, I say. Accept him. I consider my brother's oath my own, and even if we cannot stand by you, at least our blades will be able to, Kurenai says. I nod solemnly. Very well. You have power and versatility, but not control. I will defeat this bankai, and I will not need to use bankai myself to do so. Split and deviate, Ruri Rokujaku, I say. I noticed one thing about her Riatsu that I can exploit when she uses this bankai, which will go away when she achieves mastery of it. The vines wrap around the stone giant and start draining Riatsu. My guess is confirmed when the giant collapses to its knees a few seconds later due to lack of Riatsu. Kurenai tried to maintain part of her bankai at the expense of the rest, and the other giants did not receive the Riatsu needed from her to maintain them when the Riatsu of one was being drained. Their supply was diverted to the one being drained, and they could no longer maintain their form. The bankai vanishes, and I gather the flowers on Ruri Rokujaku's vines and feed them to Kurenai, who is on her hands and knees gasping. I explain the deficiency to her, and she groans in realization. I understand this weakness and will try to correct it, she says. Now, how do I link you to Ten no Ikari? She asks glumly, clearly ashamed of the mistake she made. You're new to bankai. You only have one thing to worry about in Shikai, but you have multiple worries when using bankai, I say. This is an error anyone could make, and easily pardonable for that, I say. She is my first seated officer to achieve bankai, and I am very proud of her for this achievement. Renji achieved bankai 2 weeks ago, but I consider her as belonging to Byakuya still, who I now regularly invite to join me for a drink. My little group of drinking partners has expanded to include Byakuya, Jushiro, Momo, Nanao, Renji, Hitsugaya-senpai, who developed a taste for sake, Zaraki, who is also a regular sparring partner of mine, Ikaku, who is my other regular sparring partner, and Yamajiji, who I have come to be closer to than my own father in the past 6 weeks. We get along very well, and I have suspicions that he is preparing a replacement in me for when he retires in a century or so. He has never outright said it, but he has been going over the matters of the first with me, as well as matters of the position of Satecho in the last couple of weeks. Thank you sir, Kurenai says. I then reluctantly instruct her on how to bond Ten no Ikari to me as well, and we enter my inner world. Ten no Ikari takes a form similar to Tenkin, except red-skinned and wearing stone armor. You may establish your realm. However, expect no preference from me. I have other Zanpakuto to work with, and your reasons for joining with me are not what I feel they should be. Tenkin had more reason to be offended, as Sajin is a captain, and thus should take more pride in the position, I say. That is acceptable. Kurenai prefers practicing her sword skills than visiting me, so I also want a little company from other Zanpakuto, as I rarely get any company from anyone, Ten no Ikari says, establishing his realm. It is a realm where the elements clash, and a single immense mountain rises from the clash, and alone of that realm is peaceful. Then no Ikari vanishes, and I gladly leave my inner world. My apologies for what your Zanpakuto, now also mine, did, Kurenai, I say. She nods sadly and salutes me. I am saddened that he felt he wished another wielder in addition to me, but I am happy that he can help myself and my brother uphold our oath to always stand by you, she says. She is smiling at the end, then turns and heads towards the practice field reserved for me as a captain, though I decided to allow any with bankai in my division to use it to practice their bankai. I call after her. Kurenai, feel free to join my little group for a drink tonight, I say. She glances back, surprise in her eyes. Are you sure? She asks. I nod. I would not have asked if I wasn't sure, I respond. Then I would be very honored to accept your invitation, she says. Then she returns to her original course, but her step is a bit lighter. I've been waiting to invite her until she achieved bankai, as I found her company pleasant, but to simply invite her into the group would be seen as preference. She is too low in rank to join us in the eyes of my division, which figured out about the group the day Byakuya and Juishiro first joined myself and Kira for a drink. We enjoy these little parties every couple of days or so and talk over whatever interests us right then, avoiding any matters of the Gate 13. The parties allow me to keep a cool head when dealing with all the matters that come with running a division. I've only lost my temper once, with Haruno Kane, which action I was commended for by the Satecho. He agreed that while on duty, my subordinate's personal opinion should not be voiced, and that insulting a captain needed to be dealt with immediately. As her commanding officer, I was obliged to deliver the reprimand, and her family's petition afterwards to have me executed annoyed Yamajiji immensely. I was commended for my actions shortly after Yamajiji had the head of the family burst into a captain's meeting and demand my execution, for being a Ryoka if for nothing else. I think Yamajiji would have given me a slight reprimand without that interruption, so I threw the intruder out of the meeting slightly more gently than I otherwise would have for his lack of respect. I shake myself from those thoughts and return to my original line of thought, which is that now an invitation to my gatherings can be viewed as a reward to Kurenai for being the first to achieve bankai among the officers of the 8th. With the matter settled so far as I am concerned, I head towards my practice field myself, meaning to practice with Ryman Hazukimaru. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.